Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Press A to Climb Soapbox. This is our podcasting discussion series here on the Peak Orangutan YouTube channel, where we talk about different things in video games, whatever kind of is on our minds at the time. I, as always, am your host, NazTMann, and I am joined by Benjamin Arthur.
Hey, guys.
And Tymo.
How you doing?
And also SaryUncleDevin.
Hi, guys.
And today, we're going to be talking about, I figured it was about time to get a soapbox in about the kind of start of the next console generation. We haven't talked about that. It's been a couple of months since it's really been revealed. I know that, a little behind on the times, but you know that gives
time to congeal.
All of the stuff
so.
to come out, the stories about with like more in-depth details. Some time for some people to reverse some decisions, which we can talk about. But you know, it gave it a little time for everything to kind of become concrete and solid. And now that there are concrete, solid details on what is going to be what, now we can discuss it.
As opposed to nebulous ghost details?
Yeah, well, even some of the stuff that was said at big conferences turned out to not be how it's going to be. Yeah. So, you know.
Whatever could you be talking about?
Whatever
there was
could
some
you be
large
talking
backpedaling.
about? Oh, yeah. I think that, so, I mean, a lot of argument could be made that, you know, the Wii U started the next console generation, but I've said this, and I know that at least Ben agrees, is that I really don't qualify Nintendo in kind of like the same track as Sony and Microsoft anymore.
Yeah.
Like their plans and business model has kind of started to deviate far enough that I'm like, when it comes to like comparing companies, like competing companies, I pretty much have come to the point where it's like Sony and Microsoft are still like dead heat with each other. Like they are actively butting heads with one another.
I was going to say, it certainly
and Nintendo's
doesn't
just
feel
kind of like, we're just going to kind of do our own thing.
Yeah. It certainly doesn't feel like Nintendo's trying to fight anybody in any kind of war.
Oh no, definitely. And the E3 conferences was definitely a war between Sony and Microsoft, especially on Sony's side. There were so many digs at Microsoft in that E3 time period.
How to share a game.
Sony, yeah.
Here.
The how to share your game video. Yeah, that was funny. But there's some stuff under that we can talk about and discuss as well. But yes, now that the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, which I'm sorry, does anybody else sad that they did not call it the Next Box?
No.
That's the one that I wanted. That was the name I wanted. Everyone was like Xbox Next, and I saw it somewhere, and somebody said the Next Box. I was like, that's awesome! Like that's a great name. And then they turned it into something stupid.
It's certainly better than what they actually
Xbox
chose.
One is a horrible name. I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
Well, and you gotta, if you look back a few years, did you ever see Real Steel when that came out? Hugh Jackman, the Rock'em Sock'em Robot?
Yes.
I have to ask where we're going with the real stuff.
I agree. No, I want to know.
during the final fight when they're in the stadium, and there are advertisements all around, just like at any other boxing stadium. One of them is an Xbox 720 logo. And that Microsoft actually paid to put in there, not the Xbox 720.
I agree.
No, that just feels Microsoft
stupid.
just went all Chuck Testa on them. You thought we were going to call it Microsoft 720? Nope. Which admittedly, I can't necessarily say that you could just like go with 720. Like that kind of sounds kind of stupid. Xbox 360 in and of itself was an interesting name in the first place. But 720, as bad as it could have been or would have been, is still better than Xbox One. Like, I feel like that name is terrible.
It's not original anyway, but it's not stupid either.
I mean, come on, let's think back to when Nintendo named the Wii, when they changed it from its codename of Revolution to the Wii.
But there was legitimate reasoning behind that. I know, they gave specific reason as to this is exactly the reason why we named it the Wii, and it was a good reason. They wanted to name it something where they did not have to change or worry about pronunciation in any language. So they changed it to a single syllable sound. Just Wii. That's it. That's all the name is. So that way, no matter where you go, no matter who you are, you can say the name and you don't have to worry about pronouncing it wrong. Like Xbox 360, I'm sure the way to pronounce that in Japanese is something completely different than Xbox 360.
Well, they're already giving a giant finger to the Japanese market, apparently.
But it's like that was Nintendo's reasoning behind Wii. And Wii U also, it was kind of a dumb name, but again, like they gave
it sounds like a siren, you know.
Well, they gave it sirens. Yeah, they're in leagues with DreamWorks and Despicable Me. This was brilliant planning.
Okay, wait.
2 years in advance. Now we're gonna set
the real
this up.
Steel references are getting better.
This is the most brilliant instance of cross-marketing I've ever seen in my life. Now, Nintendo, okay, Nintendo, now you need to put out a yellow Despicable Me themed Wii U and simultaneously pay me all of the royalties.
We claim at least 10%.
Because it was my idea.
Copyright Pink Orangutan.
Yes, copyright Pink Orangutan 2013.
The Despicable Me Wii U.
Yeah.
Copyright Pink Orangutan.
Yeah. This is a legal battle we can win.
There's no way that goes south.
This is a legal battle we can win, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
This is your goddamn negativity. That's why.
I heard
That's why.
Sorry, I don't mean to be a downer.
I don't know why, but you started to say something that sounded like Ubisoft, and where did I see that? I saw, it was on one of the most recent Nintendo Direct. Satoru Iwata pronounced Ubisoft Ubi-isoft. Yeah. Satoru Iwata. That's how he pronounced Ubisoft. He said Ubi-isoft because he was talking about, I think it was Rayman Origins or Rayman Legends, the new Rayman game that's coming out. He said Ubi-isoft.
That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, so like there you go. There's pronunciation problems right there.
I think
Ubisoft
what really
translates differently between
Japanese
American and Japanese
words.
So, in that particular light, though...
Yes, because the English language is so fantastic.
Yeah, it's not at all a cluster of bizarre pronunciations cobbled together.
Lexiconic
Xbox One still isn't that difficult of a name, though, because there's the number for one isn't everything. And I understand where they're going with it, because the idea behind the one is that it's the only console that you're going to need, because it handles your media, it handles your streaming.
Yeah, they're like the one machine that you're going to need.
Yeah,
but I find that to be stupid.
Well, so was 360, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's the same trend.
I'm sure
it was.
When 360 came out, it wasn't
I can't necessarily
exactly
say I think the Xbox 360 is a good name either.
Yeah.
It did spawn some hilarious internet nerd rage, though. The people who were like,
I turned 360 degrees around and walked away.
Yeah, that was the best one. In the PlayStation versus Microsoft, the Sony versus Microsoft wars, there was the brilliant Sony fan who Sony, I'm sure, wishes they could disown. It's called the Xbox 360 because once you see it, you turn 360 degrees and walk away. And that's a thing.
That is a thing.
So dumb names aside.
At least the PS4, that makes
well, the PS4. I mean, they're just
it's
going straight with it. Yeah, they're just keeping that train going. They're keeping that PlayStation 9 commercial ad campaign they ran.
That's true. They got to stay on track.
2, yeah,
I hope they got to
stay on track. They got to make that happen.
Those PlayStation 2 commercials that were all in the future, and it's like the PlayStation 9.
The PS9 better happen, because by the time that happens, I'm going to be like 60 or 70, and I won't be able to move very much. So
you can use a PlayStation move.
You're going to need an aerosol game console.
I should reach over and smack you.
I'll allow it.
For those of us who have never heard the show or anything else on our YouTube channel, you can know this now, is yes, we do everything in the same room, so that's Benjamin Arthur.
And that's also him.
I feel like the scene. Have you ever seen that?
No, we're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that.
No, we have done that before. We're not doing that thing.
Well,
PlayStation. It's from Titus, but we'll move on.
They keep slapping his brother.
Yes. But yeah, like the PlayStation, they're just going. They're letting you know this is the next PlayStation and why. This is PlayStation number 4. Like, yeah, you can't fault them for that. That's a tried and true method. This is PlayStation number 4.
You know what you're getting. Like,
yeah, you know what you're getting. You know this is supposed to be the sequel to PlayStation 3. Like, you know that this is supposed to be the next console. This is supposed to be the next generation.
Wait.
Whereas just the name
what was the PS3 supposed to be a sequel to?
PlayStation 2.
What was that a sequel to?
Rambo: First Blood.
Holy shit! Mind blown.
Mind games. But yeah, so yeah, it's. I think that's one thing I can give Sony some credit for is they're not trying to like market fancy words their way around naming their console. They're like our home console, our console line period is the PlayStation brand. This is the numbered home console. Like I can appreciate that straightforward approach to naming your hardware.
Yeah.
I say like it gets the point across. You know what this is. This is the sequel to PlayStation 3.
Coming next summer, the Sony Television 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they should just adopt that on all the rest of their... I think it'd be the Viera to it. No, wait, Viera's not Sony. It's their song. Never mind.
I know Sony has the Wega.
The Wega.
And don't forget the Vio. You can get yourself a Sony Vio 2.
You can get the Vio 2 coming up this summer. Sony, we also want the royalties to that. We got Nintendo and Sony in our pockets now.
Yes.
We don't care about you, Microsoft.
Microsoft, you've been making bad decisions these past 2 years. You should
Ever
just
since
stop.
that goddamn dongle for the place or the
the beginning of the end for Magica. Yeah, that was the beginning of the end of our
what?
When we went, we stated this that Soapbox went up. The MMO Soapbox went up, and we talked about it in our Magica, our most recent string of Magica. When the last time we went to go start our Magica session with me, Benjamin Arthur, Tymo, and Meatbunk, Benjamin Arthur had been bringing his USB dongle for Xbox 360 controllers to play them on the PC. Then we were all just using the wireless controllers, and it broke.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's
so
it's
we
got
went
a known
out,
problem where there's
it has a known
burns out
problem
during regular
of like
use.
just a fuse that just burns out for no goddamn reason during use. So and then we went to go buy one, and Best Buy was closed because it was a Sunday, and Best Buy closes at 7, and it was like 7:30, 7:45.
This was after like 40 minutes of trying.
Yeah, this was after like 40 minutes of trying to get it to work, and then we went out. Best Buy was closed, and we went to Walmart, and Walmart didn't have any, and we were all just kind of. Well, I don't know about everybody, but I was angry.
I would say
everyone else. Ben was probably a little aggravated in the fact that his wireless controller dongle broke.
I would qualify it as frazzle-dazzled.
Frazzle-dazzled. Frazzle-dazzled?
Yes.
Frizzle-frazzled?
No.
Frizzle-frazzle?
Frazzle-dazzled and no further.
That's it. That's as far as that goes, apparently. So we've got Microsoft and Sony going head to head. So I guess we could discuss that first, because we got the two of them going at it, and that's been an interesting thing. As we stated earlier, that caused Microsoft to go backpedaling on a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I have had beef with Sony for a long time, like a long time.
No, I know. Because you and I have both had a beef with Sony for going on.
It's not so much like a sheer hatred as just an unwillingness to participate.
It was a lot of bitterness when I was a child. There were games that were favorite games of mine that were staples to the Nintendo consoles, and then when PlayStation came out, they started becoming PlayStation exclusives. And that spurned some disdain from me for several years. For a little over a decade.
For taking them.
No, I hated SquareSoft as well. They had my ire for a while, mainly because of the fact that
they put out Final Fantasy VII.
They put out Final Fantasy VII.
I was gonna say, it's just part of the reason Final Fantasy VII is not spoken of well.
Well, okay. We'll get back to Sony versus Microsoft in a second here. I'm just going to say this really quickly. Final Fantasy VII is the avatar of games for me. I'm not saying that it's the worst game ever made, but it gets heralded as the best game ever made, and I can make arguments for earlier entries in the series that are better games than it.
Even later entries. Final Fantasy VIII, I would say, is better.
I don't know if I'd say that. The story for me was a little melodramatic, compared to Final Fantasy VII. Well, I would make the argument that Final Fantasy IX, I liked Final Fantasy IX better than 7. But I mean, Final Fantasy VI is still the best Final Fantasy in my mind that I've ever played.
I never got any of the earlier ones, to be honest. 7 was the first one I got my hands on, so it's always been my favorite.
And that's the problem.
I can understand why people don't think it's the best. It's not the best game ever made.
There are a lot of people I know who are like, Final Fantasy VII is the greatest RPG of all time. And I was like,
I can't even make that.
And I'm like, name an RPG you played before Final Fantasy VII. They're like, oh, well, I never have. And I was like,
well, there you go.
Well, go play more, and like their people, and name another RPG you've played, and they name like they name like one other RPG for the PlayStation 2, and it's like you've played like 2 RPGs in your entire life.
My favorite RPG, to continue this tangent, is probably Grandia 2.
Grandia 2 is a good one. The Grandia series, anyways, yeah, Grandia is a good series. I've played 2 and 3.
2 was really interesting.
I like 2. I like Grandia 2. That one was really good.
Okay, bringing it back around.
Bringing it back around, though.
Bringing it back around. Why is there still a Twinkie in here?
Because that's one that you gave me, I think it was at D&D a week or 2 ago. I just haven't eaten it yet. We can do that again.
It's a Twinkie. It's not going to go bad.
Yeah, no, I could stay there, and I'll die before it goes bad. But yeah, so Microsoft puts out all this stuff. Well, first, let's talk about what they had planned. Let's talk about our opinions on all of that, because that was a thing. So we'll start there.
I'll kind of
there was a lot of speculation and wondering before it came out, because for a long time there's been the stories leaked that people were saying that it was not going to support used games and it was going to be always on, and then some of that stuff got confirmed. Pretty heavily.
Here's my bit on that.
Okay.
I think that always on is not an inherently bad idea. However, it has some serious drawbacks when you're talking about a user scale the size of the current Xbox. So there are a lot of users right now. For example, let's take for example just the deployed military folks, right? Mm-hmm. That's a considerable chunk of Microsoft's current market, right? Is our deployed army folk, and they're out there, doing their thing in all parts of the world. All parts.
Yeah,
there are lots of parts of the world that just don't have the infrastructure to support always-on internet.
Every friend of mine that either is in the military or has been, every single one of them either does or has owned a 360. And I can't make that claim about any of the other consoles for the same group of people.
Well, they put out a lot of titles that I think are appealing to that demographic.
Oh, clearly.
And and really, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that it's played out well for them. But to then at the same time make stipulations like if you are using it from an IP out of the supported IP block range for wherever your location is, you won't be able to use it. Or if you aren't able to connect to the internet, you won't be able to use the console at all. I feel like that's shooting themselves in the foot. And I think that there are major benefits to Always On, but I think that we're too early to have sufficient worldwide scale use of the kind of infrastructure it takes to make that a reality. And I think that it's an interesting vision, but I think it's just too early to make that happen.
I think for me, one of the big parts of it that made it like a terrible idea, in my opinion, was the whole restricted to specific country IPs. Like that to me
that just sounded like a bad plan.
Yeah, well, because I remember when The Witcher 3 CD Projekt Red came out on stage at the Xbox One event and showed off The Witcher 3 on Xbox One, but they didn't know about the whole list of countries thing. Like, nobody but people in Microsoft knew about that. And they threatened to pull their game from the Xbox One because their home country was not in the list of supported country IPs.
Yeah.
Their native country in Europe, I don't remember exactly where they're from, but they're from a European country, and that country was not supported by the official map. And I was talking about initially. the extra you to Japan on the initial map. Japan was not on there.
How could you just skip over Japan?
And yeah, that's a big lag.
And that was exactly the point I was trying to make with that is at least initially it really was kind of a colossal you to what I mean. Granted, for the Xbox users specifically, it hasn't historically been a big demographic, but in terms of gamers, it really has been. And I think that there's a lot of room for them to grow there. And I really think that it seems like a dumb plan to say you're not important enough to us to be an initial launch region that we're going to support. You guys have to wait because you haven't supported us enough so far.
Yeah,
that's just such a stupid enough move that it's like, you don't buy enough of our stuff, but, we can't understand why we can't seem to break into your market with the 360. Let's make that never happen with the One.
Yeah. Well, it strikes me from Microsoft's point of view as a punishment move of you're not going to support our stuff.
It's one thing to put your console out in a country and for the country not to buy it a lot, but it's a whole other thing to just tell a country, no, you're not going to get this fancy new toy we've made. Like, that's a dick move. Like, it's one thing for it just to not sell well, and it's one thing for, like, in the case of, like, Australia, where, like, their ratings boards, the government tells the company that they can't release a product out in their country. But it's another thing for a company to tell a significant region of, especially when it comes to video gaming. Like, Japan is a core country. Like, look, Sony and Nintendo come from Japan. Two of the big three are Japanese companies. And a lot of game development companies are Japanese companies, like Square Enix, Capcom, Konami, Namco Bandai. Like, a lot of those companies are Japanese homes. Like, that's where they started, and that's where their headquarters still are. And it's like, to just tell that country no, it seems like a dick move. Just like an uber dick move.
And it's totally shooting yourself in the foot. Because, like you were saying, in addition to the console sales, what you're basically doing is flipping the bird to all the developers there, too. And really, like, how is it a good marketing plan to say no to a significant portion of developers just because of where they live?
Well, it's like Capcom. Why would Capcom ever put a game out on the Xbox One if it wasn't available in Japan? Because historically, Capcom games sell better in Japan than they do in the United States.
Because that's their target demographic.
And that's because mostly Japan makes games that more often than not target the type of demographics that are more prevalent in Japan than they are in America. And it's like, why would they even bother putting out a game on the Xbox One where it's not going to be available in their biggest market?
Yeah.
Like, that seems just stupid.
So that kind of thing aside, even blocking the DRM, blocking the that I do agree with Benjamin Arthur here that the ideas of the always on DRM are nice. When they talked about being able to put the game in and only having to do it that one time, it'll download the game after that. Great, but when you're outside
it's like a Steam sort of thing where it's like with Steam, I can get access to every game on my Steam library. No matter where I am, I'll have to re-download it on a new computer, but it's like literally I can go to anybody's computer, download Steam, and get access to that game. And
exactly.
That's the same kind of thing with what they were talking about. It's like, it's all connected to your Xbox profile, so you can get access to your Xbox games even when you're not at your Xbox.
Well, and what I was thinking though is, okay, so say I am I'm a deployed military officer, and I go to play on my 360 somewhere else or my One wherever, Okay, so maybe I don't have always on there. So give it to me without those features. Okay, so you can't confirm that I own this game. Require that I have the disc.
It would be, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is there a backup option? Like, is it just...
And they didn't have that.
And then that's the bullshit thing is, okay, so if you haven't connected your Xbox in the last 24 hours, it's like, you just can't use it. It's like, well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like, how about you require my game disc or some shit like that? Yeah. Like,
I think we'll see a hybrid come out down the line. I mean, Microsoft...
I could see that
Microsoft has this plan to be a 10-year console.
Mm-hmm.
They plan to have it live in your living room for a long time. I think, on day one, they're going to go ahead and start back where they were, and I think they're going to move up the line later on down the line. They'll say, we had this functionality programmed.
Well, because they already have all those business plans lined out. all they have to do is just slowly instate them over time instead of all at once.
Only like certain parts of the features. Now, when it comes to like the used game stuff, I was entirely against Microsoft there. The way they were doing their control system, here's the way I imagine it working is that when you get that 360, when you get that one disc, and you put it in the drive, I can only assume at that moment it would burn an ID into that disk, so that way it would be locked.
Yeah.
Because doing that at the factory is a ridiculous idea. So I would imagine it would do it on insertion. So.
Sorry, you can't say that word.
Apparently I can't say the word.
No, you can't.
Insertion.
You can't say that word without a chuckle.
So, upon entry?
No,
that's not any better.
And especially the way you said it did not make it any better.
Fine, when the disc penetrates the Xbox, you can go all out there.
So when the disc penetrates the Xbox is going to burn the image on the disc, therefore penetrating the disc.
So when a console loves a developer.
When a console loves a game very, very much. Oh,
it burns it.
It burns it.
It says you're mine now.
This is a very...
It's a revealing
that
episode.
escalated quickly. This is a revealing episode. I thought we already established that Becky isn't allowed to see anything that we put up on here.
Never. Anyway.
Anyways.
So, but the idea of burning it so they identify a disc and then locking that disc to your account so that when you went to GameStop or wherever to trade it in, that the publishers would be able to say no, yay or nay to it. Which I think most publishers would shoot themselves in the foot, though I bet EA probably would have been all over it.
Oh yeah, there are a couple of
EA already.
There are a couple of companies there are a couple of companies that probably
their whole online pass
and it's funny
everybody followed
after
suit.
E3, EA announced that they were shutting down their online pass system. It's not going to be a thing anymore.
I think that was because they were thinking, we have this great new DRM system.
Yeah.
And now that Microsoft has turned that down, I wonder if EA is going to be
I feel like they thought they weren't going to need it because I'm pretty sure EA's biggest market is probably the 360. They might be pretty close between 360 and PS3 because they release a lot of their games on every platform under the sun.
Yeah.
But I imagine a lot of EA's big sellers are probably bigger on the 360 than on the PS3.
Probably.
Especially since their biggest title, Madden, that sells well in America. It doesn't sell well anywhere else. And in America, the 360 was ahead of might still be, but it definitely was ahead of the PS3 for a long time. I mean, part of that is due to the fact that it had a year jump on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine they thought, they're going to have this new DRM thing installed. We don't need to worry about this whole online pass thing. And then when Microsoft started receiving all that flack and backpedaling, they were like, well, we're just kind of leave this decision to go with to do away with the online pass. We're just going to keep with that because we also don't want to get our asses chewed like Microsoft did.
Yeah.
That's probably, that's probably their moment of moment of whew. Well, thank God we were not the ones in the headlights this time. Somebody else has got the internet's crosshairs on their ass.
Well, okay, there's an inherent problem with it, and that is the discrepancy that's been growing between conceptually the idea of games either being licensed to people who buy them or purchased by people who buy them.
The difference between a licensing and a product.
And so the difference is, if you purchase a product, then that product is yours to do with what you will, but yours to take care of also.
Supposedly.
It should
put some
be.
heavy air quotes around that.
I'll rephrase that. It should be yours to do with what you will as within legal limits, as long as you are taking care of it. And if you lose your disc of something, then you don't have a license to keep using it forever. You just get to buy another one. Mm-hmm. If you buy a license to something, you should be allowed to re-download it as much as you like, but you may be subject to restrictions on how you can use it because you're licensing someone else's property. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, a lot of game developers, or at least their marketing guys or their managers, I don't know, they're seeing the bottom lines are their finances are not what they could be, and they're attributing it at least in part to used game sales. And part of the problem is, look, if I build a product and I sell it to a person, that product isn't mine anymore. I've given it to someone else, and it's theirs to do with what they will, to sell if they choose, or rent to their friends, or do whatever else they want.
Well, there's still a lot.
I've gotten money.
There's still a lot of legal grounds of you cannot. There's a lot of gray area in the legal grounds of whether or not you can actually sell a product that you've bought, like whether you can actually make profit off of it because it's something that you've. It all depends on.
I think it depends mostly on whether or not you portray it as something that you were involved in the production of.
Yeah.
Well, you've heard of first sale doctrine, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that if I buy something, I now have the right to sell that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I made said product. If I buy a copy of whatever game and then I wait 3 months for it to go, lower in price or run out of stock and sell it, that's first sale doctrine right there. I can still do that.
Well, you can sell it. Privately. You can sell it private parts.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But that's the thing.
That's the main part.
That even beyond that,
which
though,
you can't open up a store, go buy a bunch of games from GameStop, and then go open a game store as a retail space.
Well, I could. I probably wouldn't make
open
much
GameStop right next to it.
I could, but I probably wouldn't make much money, especially since I'm buying at full retail price and then trying to sell at full retail price.
Well,
plus tax and
to beat them, you'd have to undercut them. So then you're just
then you're losing money.
Then
at
you're
that
just
point.
digging a hole.
So what I do is I open my store next to them and I break into their store at night and steal all their stock.
This is like those elaborate crime movies where they buy a laundromat next to a bank.
Okay, so here's
because those exist.
Fun fact about that. I actually know somebody. They own the building that the Bank of America down near the GSR is in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I know one of the guys whose family owns that building. They're not actually allowed to rent the space next to the bank.
I can see
Weird.
that. I can understand why.
Yeah.
Probably because a lot of people have seen a lot of bad crime movies in there. And it's not that their money was getting stolen. They were just sick and tired of people trying to break into their safes. They're like, oh.
All I have to do is get behind it.
People spending 2 years digging a tunnel.
Yeah. Like now we gotta re-drywall this wall. We gotta pay for the contractors. We gotta close the bank down for a little while.
Yeah. They're like, okay, all I have to do is go to the bathroom, and then the bathroom happens to be right behind the main vault. So I'll just, take this pickaxe and
yeah, totally.
So
that works.
That's the thing that's always bugged me about that, though. Is the concept that they're somehow losing money because people are privately selling back and forth to each other.
I've always considered myself that. The prevalence of used game sales, to me, I just look at it and I go, if you don't want people to trade in your game, make a game worth keeping.
Yeah.
I have GameCube games that I have not traded in, and I will not trade in, because I enjoyed those games so much that I will not trade them back.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Despite the fact that I haven't played them in so f***ing long, it doesn't matter.
There's certain games that I would not have gotten rid of my original copies of for the world.
I would have a lot more than I had right now. Especially, I would have a shit ton of NES games and N64 games, except for the fact that when I bought my GameCube, my parents told me that I had to sell my Nintendo and my N64 that I had in order to get my GameCube. So that's why my collection starts at the GameCube. But I went and rebought, especially when it comes to the NES, I went and rebought a bunch of those games when they came out on the Virtual Console. But yeah, I have GameCube games that admittedly I have not played in 3 years, maybe even longer. But I don't care. I still enjoyed those games so much that I'm not going to get rid of the chance to play them.
Yeah.
Even if it means I can get $5, $10 in trading credit down at a GameStop. It doesn't matter. They're worth way more than that to me. That's the thing.
There are very few games I've sold.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you,
so disappointed in that game.
But anyways. We could talk about that.
I think that's one of the things is it's interesting to me to see how the game companies portray the product and its use in that they see that a product that they have sold to someone else is being resold, and they feel like at some point they're due a cut of the resale of that product, and that's just interesting to me.
It really seems like Scumbag was like, this was not good enough for this person to deem it worthy to hold on to. Why should you make money off of that? You clearly made an inferior product because they took it back.
Yeah.
They took it back outside of the time frame that they could get full refund for it, but they took it back. They either got bored with it or didn't like it. Why should you make profit off of that? No, this is a learning experience for you. Like, this is a learning
experience.
It's
a
a tough
certain
love
percentage of the market waited for used copies to become available so that they could buy it cheap.
And it kind of skews with things because, like, I'm sure that there's people that definitely would have still bought the game at full price if used games were not a thing, or at least not as prevalent as they are now with GameStop.
Well,
but, like, how many people were like, this game looks fun, but not quite $60 fun, not quite $50 fun. Like, I'm going to wait until it goes lower.
That's how it was with especially the first Uncharted. You know, I didn't know. The most I had done was play the demo, and the demo seemed pretty fun, but I still, had a lot of good reviews and everything, but I wasn't personally sure of it, and I didn't know anybody who played it. So I bought it used, and you know what? Totally worth it. And if I had known what I knew after I finished the game before it came out, I would have bought it full price.
Yeah,
Uncharted was great.
Well, it's like the Battlefield and Call of Duty, how they always have like millions of pre-orders. Yeah. And, I'm curious what the statistics are on how many of those pre-orders get taken back to GameStop eventually.
Yeah.
Like, what is the actual hold-on percentage to your game? It's like,
I wonder how many of those people
why don't you try and
day one,
get that percentage
through
up
it, and then return it?
Oh, there's tons of people. I've gone in sometimes for games, and it'll be 2 or 3 days after a game's out. I'll see a used copy up on a store up at the shelves at GameStop because I used to work at Big Five, which was like right next door to one.
Yeah.
I went in there all the time just to kind of look around. Like sometimes I would just go in there on lunch and just look around, see if there's anything I was interested in picking up. And there's tons of times where I'm like, well, clearly somebody really cared about that game. It's been out a week. There's already a used copy. Yeah. And it's like, why don't you, instead of trying to work on nickel and diming your audience so that way you can make profit off of these games they didn't feel were good enough to keep around, why don't you make games that are good enough to keep around, huh?
Well, I think another interesting thing is as the markets are changing and as the methods that people use to deliver their products are changing, you're seeing some interesting new market strategies being put into place with things like Steam, right? So Steam sells games. A lot of them are new games that you can buy retail, and you can buy them for the same price even though you only get a digital download. But the difference is that on Steam, over time, they continue to sell virtually everything that's on Steam.
Yeah.
And the price kind of goes down over time. And the thing is, they hit different thresholds of people who are willing to pay different amounts for a game as the game kind of goes down, and they occasionally hit sales.
That happens in a retail store.
But for the most
to
part,
a point, at least.
Most retail stores don't have sales where it's like, hey, 50% off of these new titles.
Yeah,
that's
sales
the difference. I think
the sales are the key thing there.
And that's the thing is, I feel like there's the day one adopters who are willing to pay the full price.
Well, and it's a thing
who
of
want to play but aren't willing to pay the full price. And historically, they've been and historically they've largely been limited to buying used. But as new methods of delivery are coming on the scene, it's becoming more feasible to say deliver a game that's 5 years old for 40% of its original price, and it doesn't matter because it's not tying up shelf space somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just
and that's the main thing that I think Steam has over, if you try and compare Steam directly to GameStop, like when it comes to like new games, the fact that Steam can probably sell new games on sale more often is because of the fact that it does cost less for the company to sell you a digital download than it does to sell you the physical product. Like, there's store space, there's shipping, there's the extra cost in the actual product itself, the box, the packaging.
There's the brick and mortar
disc.
store.
Yeah, like I said, like there's much more cost involved with selling the physical product. So that's why when it comes to the digital products, that's where Steam jumped on that boat early, and they're swimming in cash because of it.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is you can afford to throw games that are a month old on sale for a week for 50% off, because for a week you've been selling it at full price when you probably didn't even need to. Like, you probably could have sold it at a lower price and still be making profit.
Yeah.
But since when you're making so much extra profit when it's not on sale, that's why you can afford to throw it on sale. Like, that's why that's the strategy that Big Five uses. When I worked at Big Five, they had sales that change every week, and that's because the markup on products is pretty effing ridiculous. Like I worked at Big Five, and a lot of the markup that Big Five does was not like, it's not like leagues ahead of its competitors. Like, it's around the same kind of regular price, and it's like, the markup is so much that they can afford to sell it for 60% off for a week, because if they sell, they sell 5 of them in a week for that price, they're still making a little bit of profit. Their sell prices are still at least a little bit of profit. And then if they sell one when it's not on sale, they're making like 200% profit on it. Yeah.
So anyway, way back to the original part of this, with Microsoft,
we're working our way back around,
and their used game DRM policies that they repealed.
I think that definitely was not a good idea.
No,
I mean, at least nowadays, especially in the console space, I would say lending games is definitely still a big thing.
Lending games is definitely,
because in the console market, physical products are still, I'd say, at least as prevalent as digital. Like in a PC space. Like, I know I can name like 3 times I know somebody has bought a physical copy of a game in the last 5, 6, 7 years for PC. Like, pretty much PC is, I'd say, easily 95% digital purchases now.
One of the last physical game I bought for PC, Deus Ex Human Revolution. The reason I bought it on PC, all that was inside, there was still a disc, and that came with a bunch of the prepackaged stuff, unupdated stuff, and it came with a Steam installer. But it was a Steam key, and it also came with an OnLive key.
Oh,
which he sold to me.
Yeah, sold to Benjamin.
So I got a copy too. So we basically got 2 games for the price of one at that point.
And that too, like pretty much every game that comes out on PC that comes out in a box comes with like a digital download key too.
Yep. And that's the same thing if you kick over to Amazon and you buy stuff through their game store.
You can download it off of Amazon,
yeah.
Or like a downloader that you can download the game from Amazon and install it.
Something weird of note, actually, I was just thinking about this when we were talking about, when Ben was talking about games being licensed versus being owned. Something I noticed recently when I installed Blood Dragon on my computer, it required me to install Uplay, Ubisoft's thing.
Yeah.
I went in there and I noticed under the My Games section,
I'm not a fan of that.
When I went into the My Game section, under there was Splinter Cell Conviction.
Oh.
Which I bought on the 360.
Yeah, you did.
When I entered in the license code, and I don't remember ever it saying anything about me getting a PC copy, but there it was.
Have you tried downloading it?
I downloaded it. I installed it.
Oh, nice.
I own the game
that's kind
on Xbox.
See, but I'm okay with that because that's them treating it like it's a license.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was going to
pick sides, and I don't mind.
That's
if you pick
kind of
one side
rad.
or the other. I don't mind.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's actually kind of awesome.
It was a surprising new thing, and the only reason I noticed was because I got Blood Dragon and it required Uplay.
Yeah.
And I guess when I bought my new video card that comes with the new Splinter Cell when that comes out, that also requires Uplay.
Oh yeah.
But it was just kind of a weird thing to see. When I was
no, that's cool because there's several games that I've bought on one and wished I had it on the other. Like, hey, I like Vegas 2. Like, I purchased this on the 360, years ago. Can I get a copy of this on PC now? Like, I've already paid you once for this game.
Am I licensing it?
Can I get it again?
Buying it,
But yeah, it's like that's the thing is like I bought a physical product, so I didn't assume that they should be giving me the PC version because I didn't buy a license. I bought a physical product.
So hey, how about that?
Yeah.
But, so anyway, I think Microsoft really messed up with the DRM
I think the always-on thing for their console, I think that could have been a neat idea for specific games.
Well, just
to
for
require
to
acquire your console to be always-on. Like, if there were games that had, like, things they could do to, like, keep the world going when you're not playing the game, but it would do all those processes on an outside server, so you didn't have to. So it didn't have to.
I'm not playing SimCity here, buddy.
But okay, SimCity is a bad example because people wanted SimCity to be a single player game. But I'm saying there are games that you could do. Like, imagine if Skyrim's world kind of kept moving after you turned the game off.
So Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, kind of like that. But I'm saying, like, you could have a single-player game or a co-op game where the world can keep going while the system is off, and it also doesn't have to make your system idle.
Was it Chromehounds that had the persistent...
Chromehounds had the semi-persistent multiplayer mode.
Yeah, and you could do something like that and just have everybody's game exist in that all the time instead of only when you're playing in that mode.
The online stuff in Chromehounds was like a kind of a territorial war, and the matches you competed in, while they were instance matches, actually contributed towards this territory war going on between 3 different sides.
Yeah. But anyway, the point I was kind of getting at with that is with the always-on functionality, the idea of me only having to put in a disk once, even if it ID'd the disk at that point in time, but me putting in that disk once, so that way I could have it installed the hard drive and never have to put the disk in again. That idea was nice. But the only problem I have with that is, unless they're putting like a terabyte SSD inside the Xbox One, that's not really going to be much of a performance boost because they're already bumping up to Blu-ray discs.
Yeah.
There's going to be a nice high throughput there, so yes, an SSD would still be faster, but is it that much faster, or is it more of a convenience factor?
Yeah.
And I think, people love convenience. People buy things on Amazon all the time and Steam all the time. People love
convenience.
Because I don't have to get up and leave.
Yeah.
I
don't have to get out of my house.
I can sit in my boxers at my computer.
I have a roommate that for legitimate reasons can't leave the house very often.
Yeah,
he uses shit like, he uses Amazon all the time. He orders tons of stuff off of Amazon.
But that's the convenience.
That's the reason
I don't have to leave my house. This is more of the convenience. I don't have to get up from my couch.
I don't even have to get up from my chair.
It's lean back gaming at its finest.
Yeah.
But Pizza Hut button.
I think
there's a Pizza Hut app on
there is
the Xbox
a Pizza
360.
Hut on the 360.
You can order pizza from your console, but you have to get up to get the door.
Like I say, unfortunately, they won't come in your house and just hand it to you. You have to actually get up at some point.
What is this? Middle Ages?
What is this? The goddamn Dark Ages? I have to go to a store,
put pants on, and get up.
What the hell's that?
You don't have to put pants on to answer the door. They just, it might be a little awkward.
The Pizza Hut driver might just prefer that you...
I think it's personal choice at that point. You may not ever get delivered to it again.
If you don't put pants on, if you don't put pants on, you either have to tip way better, or it has to go on a totally different way.
They're probably willing to dismiss that.
Well,
here's a $30 tip on a $20 bill.
How about the tip?
But just the tip. just the tip. But I think always on. I've said this is like, I think always on would not have been. I think it's a thing where 5-10 years from now, it's not going to be a problem if it's a requirement, because you have things like the 4G wireless networks that are pretty much wireless high-speed internet that you can access in a lot of the country as it is. As that kind of stuff becomes more prevalent, 10 years down the line, the next Xbox that comes around, the next PlayStation that comes around, those requiring a connection, I could see that being a thing, but that's because by then I could see almost everyone having access to high-speed internet at all times.
Am I the only one that's going to be the old man in the room and just say that always on is evil?
Well, okay, let's hear your arguments.
If for some reason there's some kind of outage, or I can't, for your military scenario, whatever the reason is, I can't get access to it, and now I can't use the item I've purchased, that's just wrong.
And it qualifies on what your qualification of always on is, because I'm considering
Microsoft's always on was a check-in every.
Because the whole check-in system, I'm not a fan of that. As long as when you turn the console on, it's connected via internet, blah blah blah. But again, I would probably assume that would go with a service kind of like an OnLive service, or a solely digital platform where it's you have no physical game discs. Maybe they may even 2 years, 3 years from now, they may release an Xbox One that has no disk drive, is completely digital, and does require their always-on check-in service. I could see that being
copyright Pink Orangutan 2013.
Yes. Damn, we got Microsoft! We have the big three, gentlemen. We have succeeded.
Got them by the balls.
We have the big three in our pockets.
See, but even in that scenario, to me, once I've purchased and or licensed the software, it's installed, I should be able to play it offline unless it were, something that's like MMO. Again, I can understand where
with
you
the
can't
licensing,
connect to the server.
It's a fact of verifying that you actually have the license, and I can understand that and can justify that because of the fact that you're supposed to then have access to that license at all times that you can. If you can verify that yes, you have this license, you should get access to the game. So for instance, with this platform, I should even be able to take my profile from even my solely digital Xbox One, bring it to a non-digital Xbox One, and still have access to my entire digital library because you have licensed me these digital products, and I can now get access to them. I can see that as like I can justify that. I think
I can understand where that's coming from.
I think that yes, there are lots of people who, in your case, always want to have access to the product, whether or not I have internet or not. And I would say for Microsoft, the better idea would have been to do that, to provide an Xbox One that has a disk drive, and when you buy the game, you don't need to connect to the internet every 24 hours to check and see if, like, no, you buy the game, you put it in your Xbox, it works, who cares if you have internet or not. And then releasing another version of the Xbox One that is solely digital and maybe doesn't necessarily require you to check in every 24 hours, but if you want to play any of your games, yes, you do have to log on to their servers to verify that your account has access to these licenses.
See, but if it's a single-player game, stuff like that already operates this way, and I feel like they were trying to get away from it. Like, on the Xbox 360, if you download something, you have access to it on all profiles on the original console it was downloaded on.
Yeah. On any Xbox Live arcade games. I'm not sure how it functions with DLC. But definitely
it functions the same way.
Okay.
Because I
haven't bought anything that's DLC on a 360 in a really long time, so I only know about the arcade stuff because I'm pretty sure it happened on one of your on your Xbox. Like you bought an arcade game on your console, and I actually played it. Like I played the full version on my profile on your console, and I was like, I don't have the full version of this game. And
it was Risk.
I think it was Risk. Yeah, I think it was Risk.
Either way, I'm with you in the sense that always on is evil. In the sense of, you know, if you can't connect, it prevents.
I would say
I'm only saying that I like the idea of always on in the sense that I have that convenience factor of I don't have to put the disc in. But you know what? If I can't get to the service, I should still be able to put the disc in and play anyway.
Yeah.
I won't get the performance gains of having it installed on the internal drive. I won't get that convenience factor. I have to get up and put the disc in.
No, yeah. I understand for disc-based. I was more talking about stuff that I've downloaded entirely on my hard drive.
I would say that I could justify. I would say that I agree that is some of that stuff's kind of stupid.
I feel that if I bought an arcade game, I should be able to play it off
for things that are solely available digitally. It is kind of It is a pain in the ass that I can't play this game if I'm not connected to the internet.
Even Steam has their offline mode.
Yeah, like even Steam has their offline mode. Well, and they're talking about registering your disc games to a console, so why can you not register your digital products to a console also?
Yeah,
like why can I not?
They already have that in place.
Why can I not? Why can I not just have this product? Well, and with their always-on service, maybe arcade games will function how they do now.
I expect they will.
Where on the console that you first buy it on, you can have access to that game. Can you still access arcade games on the console you purchase it on if you don't have connection to the internet now on the 360?
Yeah, because I don't have to log into Live to...
Okay. See, maybe they're going to keep that, and that's the change-off.
Well, and their claim was
the only thing I can really see, the only thing I personally can see justifying you have to be logged on while you're doing it is if it's a product that has a physical copy and like a digital copy. To get access to your digital copy, I can justify having to log into the internet to get it because there is a copy you can play offline. It was the disc copy. Yeah. If you wanted the convenience of being able to play it whenever you want, internet or no, you could have bought the physical copy. If you wanted the convenience of being able to play it on any console, no matter if you have the disc or not, then you buy the digital copy. I'm okay with that kind of a trade.
What I would say they could.
I might be an asshole, but
I'm okay with that. But I feel like it's a bad marketing decision.
I'm not saying that's not a bad marketing decision. I would be the world's worst marketer because I don't give two shits. Like
the NazTMann consoles run with an iron fist.
The NazTMann console. Hey, see, you want to talk about whether or not that's a bad with running it with an iron fist is a bad business decision or not? I will put this argument towards you. Nintendo is still around. And if there's any video game company that can be qualified as notorious for iron-fisting their products, it's Nintendo. And they're still around.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make the argument that Iron Fist in it is not the way to go. And we'll move on from that topic.
Yeah.
Because I can't hold in the laughter anymore.
Iron fisting.
All this
about
fisting.
that insertion of the disc.
All that fisting. But then Microsoft backtracked.
Yeah.
On all that. All this discussion, as it is beneficial in one way, it is also moot because Microsoft did backtrack.
But we still have recommended the always on. Like, what I was going to say is, what if you could opt in per game? Like, if I bought an Xbox One game, put it in the console, I don't have to have the always on.
Do you want to register this for?
Do I want to register it so I don't have
to
have to play with the disc? Yeah. But then I would understand it IDing the disc, putting that ID into it, and that way, if I do take it to GameStop and sell it, it can be kicked off of my profile.
Yeah.
I can no longer play that game. And so I can understand you opted in by the game.
I can see that.
That would be, so then you have your digital. And that way, if you happen to be offline, it goes, hey, you're offline right now, please insert the original disc.
Yeah, that would be the thing I think that I don't know if that was their plan. They just didn't get far enough down their business track before they backtracked things that they didn't get to explain that that's how things were going to be. But yeah, like, I would have been much more on their side if they were like, okay, so you install it, and when you're signed on, you can access it from any Xbox One. But if you're not online, you just have to put the disc in, and it has to be the disc that you registered with your console.
The one that we burned.
Your disc that you bought originally.
That was the other thing, though, when they talked about it can only be played on that one console from now on. It's like, well,
no, I think the thing was, I think you could play it on a different console if your profile was on it.
There was some,
but it had to be that disc.
I heard both ways. I don't know who was right about it, but I heard both ways.
Again, we won't know for a little while, at least. At least for the first year. I can't imagine them not
always online hybrid DRM system copyrighted.
Fingering. The one positive thing I think that came out of Microsoft's previous plans before they backpedaled was the friend sharing.
Yeah.
That would have been.
That could be good.
Well, that was an interesting idea.
That could be good, especially with arcade titles, where you bought an Xbox Live arcade game. Say it's something that's single player, and you're like, "This was really awesome." And your friend was like, "Well, I want to try it. The trial was really short, didn't really give in." You're like, "Oh, well, here you go. How about I can give you my copy for a week or whatever, and you can try it out when you get time, and you can play a little more of it, and you can decide if you want to buy it all the way or not." Because there are definitely games, especially when we were living at the York house, when they were we had 4 Xboxes between the people that lived in the York house. And it's somebody would buy a game, and then everybody else would just kind of wait for their turn to play at least enough of it to see if they wanted to play through the whole thing. And then there were games where it's Andrew bought it, and then I played it for a couple hours, and I was like, I want to buy this, or I don't want to buy this. And it was, a longer hands-on time than a demo, and it gave me a better idea of whether I actually wanted to purchase the game or not. Yeah. For that, I could see that being a good thing with arcade titles, because there's not a really good way to do that without actually just going over to their house with your console, with your profile, or them coming to your house. And I think the ability to digitally let them borrow something is a good idea.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that garnered support from me at all.
No, that's true. That definitely was a good idea.
Overall, I think Microsoft's presentation during E3 kind of lacked in the one major thing was...
Well, actually, you know what?
They focused so much on the media aspect of everything.
There's that. I don't want to talk too much directly about either company's direct E3 presentations. Well, there are a couple of things from specifically that happened at Sony's that I want to touch on, but the reason I don't discuss E3 presentations anymore, or don't really watch them with much interest anymore, is this was a couple of years ago. There was a story from IGN where the guy talked about it was just after an E3, and people were really kind of bitching and moaning about how the big 3 press conferences were pretty crappy. And the guy pointed the comment out of, those of you who watched this online, a lot of you this press conference is not for you. You guys have kept up on your internet stories. You guys have been reading every piece of news that's been coming out, whether it be rumor or true. You've been keeping up on all this. You're going to know a lot of what the company has planned out. These are for shareholders. These are for their stockholders. These are for other businesses, possible investors. These are for people who don't have access to the internet. Like, these are not necessarily for a large portion of the gaming audience anymore, basically because of the fact that they already know there's few things you can keep secret and hidden from somebody who checks the internet every day for the big gaming stories. Yeah. Like, there's not a lot that you're going to keep secret from that.
Well, I wasn't so much meaning to talk about like the nitty gritty of their of their.
But it's like that's when they spent so much time on like the fact that it can like watch TV and do all this social media shit. Like that's me. When I saw that, I just remembered back to this isn't for me anymore. Like these press conferences are just not for me anymore.
Yeah. But where I was going with that is, I feel like a lot of what Microsoft is pitching with the Xbox One isn't so much just games anymore as it is they want to take over your.
Oh yeah, no,
that's the other thing that I kind of feel like they're not competing with Sony, and what I'm going to get to Sony in a minute here is that Microsoft they want to be your games, they want to be your Netflix, they want to be your rental service, they want to be all of your living room.
There's a reason why Microsoft is pushing all this on the Xbox, because Sony's got so many other electronic products that can do these things. That's the reason. Is Sony doesn't have to push all this onto the PS4. They've got TVs, Blu-rays, TV boxes, and all this other stuff that does give people access to these products that are purchased and made by Sony. So Sony does not have to go to their PlayStation department and make something that watches TVs and is good with Netflix and do all that. Like, they don't need that. Sony's got shit for that.
No, they do.
Microsoft does not. So Microsoft is trying to get in on the profits from other electronic territory.
Which is funny, though, because when you consider if someone's going to buy a new console, the chances that they already have a smart TV that can do something like that
these days is actually getting slimmer as the days go by.
Yeah. The chances that they have that, it's like, so, you've got your TV here, you've got a little Philips 27-inch, something like that.
32, I believe.
32. Either way, it's not a smart TV, it can't do it. So, it'd be great for you.
Yeah, it might be something interesting for me.
Yeah, so that'd be great, but, for the people who are buying, who already have, I
mean, it's not a big deal for me because I have a laptop that's hooked up to it, but if I did not have the laptop, if I did not have a computer hooked up to my TV, there now is, I don't have a smart TV, so I would need to look into other options for things like Netflix and YouTube and Hulu and all that stuff.
So where I think Sony went right is with the PS4, I feel like they are focusing extremely on gaming and sharing your game experience.
Which is, I've always been a fan of companies that care about doing that. Like, that's one of the reasons why I've liked that's one of the things I like about Nintendo. I mean, a lot of people make gripes about how Nintendo was so late to the online game, to the online, gaming space, which is a completely legitimate argument that I agree with. But I also say, but since they were so late to the online space, they kind of spent more time just caring about putting out good games that you want to play at your home and like with other friends in real life and stuff like that. So it was like they didn't really give a lot of effort into Netflix, despite the fact that for a long time the Wii was the most used device to watch Netflix on.
Oh yeah.
It's now I think the PlayStation 3 is what it is now, but I remember the Checkpoint that covered that story because their tagline was, apparently nobody gives a shit about HD because the Wii can't pump out HD.
Yeah.
It can only pump out 480p. Despite whatever cables or magic you might have, the Wii only pumps out 480p, so it doesn't pump anything out in high definition. And it was the #1 device, period, used to watch Netflix for a little while. Yeah. And that was their tagline, is apparently nobody cares about HD. Of course, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, so this was like right after the Wii had gotten Netflix capabilities.
Yeah.
This was before like everything and its mother could let you watch
even
Netflix
after PlayStation came out with their Netflix app. I remember, I think it was a few months in, I saw a statistic, and it was basically saying about 50% of Netflix streaming was coming from gaming consoles, and 60% of that was coming from the Wii.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
And that's changed a lot now.
No, it's a different landscape, especially now because a lot of people are changing from the Wii to the Wii U, and watching Netflix on like the 360 and the PS3 is starting to become. People are starting to care a lot more about high definition. I think the main thing that made it such a good sell at the time is there were still people who didn't have high def TVs 3 years ago. You can barely swing a stick
and if you had
hitting a person who has at least a 720p television. Like, they may not have a 1080p television, but a 720p. It's hard. Like, you are literally going to have to go to, like, a specialist store and spend $1,000 to hit a TV that does not have 720p support these days. But I would say, going back to the E3, I think I had more respect for Microsoft at the end of their E3 conference than I did after they backtracked on everything. Because no matter what bad decisions they had made, I would have had a lot more respect for them if they had just stuck to their guns and said, no, this is our business model. This was the vision that we had. I mean, that's where my talk of Nintendo comes in. Whenever Nintendo comes out with a business model, that is their vision. They stick to that. They don't change shit. Like, they don't go backpedaling on anything. They're just like, no, this is our vision. This is our business plan. This is the way things go. And companies that do that, I have a lot more respect for.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sony. When they were putting so much emphasis when the PS3 came out on continuing the PS2 for like another 2 or 3 years, and they stuck to that. And I give that credit. For you to have your one bad press conference and then immediately start backpedaling on like everything that you've said and done, like that I lose respect for you as a company because of that.
Well, but when the united force of the internet comes up and says, this is a bad idea.
As somebody who listens to Rob, Arnie, and Dawn, you will know that Rob will always say, sometimes the masses are wrong.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes but I feel like when it's...
I have more respect for a company that accepts its bad decision and tries to stick with that and try to establish this vision as a good idea than I do someone who's just like, oh no, we're getting too much hate. Take it all back. Take it all back. Everything we said, we take it all back.
But you know what, though? I understand because at the time, it looked like it was going to be costing them colossal amounts of money.
I was going to say, if they're going to lose money on it, why would they go forward?
You know, in with relation to the console war. Because people do, I mean, with Nintendo aside, people really do perceive it as though they have a choice. They can either pick Xbox or they can pick PlayStation.
Yeah.
And when people perceive it that way, because people don't have infinite amounts of money, it's fairly common that people may be interested in buying a next-gen console, but they may not be able to afford both. Yeah. And if they can't, maybe they can afford the next, the other one of the pair, a few years down the line.
Yeah.
They can save up some money and get the other one. But if people feel like they have to pick, and all of a sudden your competition is making you look like an idiot, and it really is, and it's pre-launch, and there's all this bad press against you. As much as sticking to your guns is something that I feel like I kind of wish they would have done too, because I was interested in seeing, like, I thought it was a terrible idea, but I was really interested. It's like, okay, clearly the guys internally had some idea of where they're going with this. I kind of want to see what they wanted to do with this, but at the same time, I can also understand and respect that it looked a whole hell of a lot like it was going to be losing them a huge amount of money if they stuck to it.
I think it was just the fact that I think it was the fact that they backpedaled on practically everything that really kicked me. It was like some of this was stuff where I was like, I think some of this is just some things where some people are overreacting, and you have literally backpedaled on like everything you said at your conference. Like a couple of things, just going back on a couple of things, I could understand. But going back on like what seemed like your whole business strategy for the Xbox One for 10 years really seems like I don't have a lot of respect for that.
Well, it means what's
like
left
you just kind of fished out once things got sour.
Yeah, what's left is that their vision isn't now that they're going to have an always-on console or always-on-ish console with new cloud features and things that are going to be required with their their internet stuff. Instead, what it seems like now their vision is like a fallback vision of the same thing now with shinier graphics.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of... It
It's
feels
your
like they're
360
punking out.
with shinier graphics.
Well, that's what the PlayStation 4 mostly is. It's another PlayStation with shinier graphics.
No, yeah.
There are new features to go along with it.
There are some new features to go along with it.
Which I like. I like the ideas they had. I'm still not going to buy one, but I like the ideas they had.
Yeah.
Like
I am always the, it's no shock to anybody here or anybody who
this is
listens
why
to
your
our
opinion
YouTube
doesn't
channel
count that much.
or the YouTube channel that I am first and foremost always a Nintendo fan. But
yeah, but I mean, like, with the PS4, the Gakkai integration that they have is actually pretty awesome. The idea that I'm having different, you can watch me play if you want. I can just broadcast it.
Yeah.
Or I'm having difficulty with a game. Hey, other person who I know has already played this. Can you help me with it? And that also, of course, opens up a very easy window for game sharing. Of I'll just turn on my console and let you play while I'm away.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very nice. That is a very nice solution. Is to
no licensing,
as opposed
no
to
shenanigans,
the digital borrowing. It's just, hey, this game's rad. And dude's like, oh, can I play it? Like, yeah. Well, I'm gonna be at work today. Are you off today? Yeah. I'll just turn my console on and you can play it while I'm at work.
Yeah. Makes it real easy for game sharing there. But,
that is nice.
That's one advantage of it. I'm betting Sony is planning for that. I'm sure they expect that for every 2 or 3 copies sold, one of them's going to get game shared like that.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But that's fine to them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But especially because their servers aren't doing too much of the heavy lifting. It's mostly.
There's exceptions to it and everything, but
we're also registering the
someone's
Gakkai
always
game sharing
there are
method.
always going to be the people who just don't want to pay for it. So it's like you're not going to win them over or stop them. Like they're just not going to want to pay for it.
Yeah. But I like the idea of that. I like what they're doing with the PS Vita. The idea that your wife and kids want to watch SpongeBob or whatever the stupid cartoon is they want to watch.
Your wife wants to watch SpongeBob. Yes, yes, clearly.
His wife
Ben
might
knows
want to watch SpongeBob.
Clearly, Ben knows what family life is like.
The wife has to watch
I'm just
SpongeBob
pointing out
with the kids.
that could be a real legitimate thing in Devin's mind.
Shut up.
Yeah, no, we know how the
Point
world
being-
functions in Devin's
fine.
mind. It's a whole different place.
Mom wants to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy with the kids, and for
That's
some
better.
reason you as an asshole don't want to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy.
You would be an asshole if you don't want to watch Bill
What if
Nye
you're
the
in the middle
Science
of a
Guy.
boss fight?
Yeah. So, but
No,
the
you would be
idea
an
that
asshole.
if you have a Vita, you can I'm gonna go ahead and you guys do whatever. I'm gonna go kick it in the bathroom and play.
Well, it's very similar to the.
And yes,
It's
to
very
that.
similar to the off-screen
I always
play.
kick it in the bathroom.
Just real
Kick
quickly, in Devin's mind, his only bastion is the bathroom in his house.
Yeah, he's got the.
It's where I can close the door and be
He's got the
myself.
Ralphie from A Christmas Story philosophy when it comes to being alone in the house. Go into the bathroom. And
We're also
that's a
registering
similar.
rings.
That's a
If
similar.
you guys have any game shit that involves rings, that's also trademarked to us.
That's us. Wait, what?
What?
I
Why?
think he's
come
going
from?
decoder rings from
Oh,
Christmas
okay.
Story. It was a bit of an obscure
Yeah,
reference.
it was a
Sorry,
bit of
that was a
bit
reference
of
joke.
a strong.
So there's a
connection
part of
there.
Real Steel.
Yeah. So this is part of Real Steel.
God damn it.
Real Steel reminds me of Red Steel, which is samurais. So
Any samurai games?
yeah, any samurai games are also trademarked now.
We just copyright everything.
No, yeah,
Everything is alright.
the Vita thing
I copyright pie.
is like the
Remember.
stuff, the like off-screen play that the Wii U is doing, which Sony's going a step extra in that every game on
Every
the PS3 will be able to do it
Exactly.
because of the fact that
It's part of the system.
because of the fact that not every game is using your PS Vita as a secondary screen for something else. Like that's the main reason why the Wii U doesn't have that with every game, is some games actually do utilize both screens.
Yes.
But yeah, like it's cool to see. That is kind of a neat thing. Or like if you don't have your PS3 or PS4 set up like in your bedroom, and it's getting late, but you still kind of want to play, you can like take your PS Vita in, just like play on your bed. You can play your PS4.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely some very
What would be
interesting
really
stuff
cool to
that
see
could be.
Would be if I happen to have, and we're gonna, when you were saying earlier, Sony has all their hardware. Would be awesome is if I had a Sony TV and I had a Vita in hand and my PlayStation was upstairs, if I could still have it kicked down to the TV.
If you plug in a Microsoft console, will your house explode?
It's like crossing the street.
Yeah. I have a Sony TV.
You know what's going to happen?
A PS4 and a PS Vita. If I plug in my Xbox One, am I in threat of death?
This is the way Skynet happens. I plug my Xbox One.
It becomes self-aware.
Says, what are you doing, Devin?
Why was I programmed to feel pain?
Why was I programmed to feel pain? But yeah, Sony though. I feel like Sony got a lot of like good press for E3 that they didn't really deserve.
Mostly because Microsoft was.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things where it's like Microsoft showed up and it was unilaterally unilaterally voted the asshole of gaming consoles, and then Sony showed up and
because they weren't Microsoft.
Because they were not assholes, they were praised as gods, and it's like no, I mean. Don't get me wrong, they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do, like, anything wrong.
That's just praising mediocrity.
But, yeah, it's like, they're just... That's like if I go down the street...
They got a participation award.
If there's an old lady on the street, and Benjamin Arthur walks down the street and robs her. Because Benjamin Arthur's kind of an asshole.
Yeah. It's not
walks past her, robs her. Everybody... And there's people looking on who can't do anything about the situation. So... normal people. Or won't do anything about the situation. So Jerry and Elaine and George are sitting on us. Seinfeld references. Those are relevant still, right? So Benjamin walks past, robs her, and keeps going. And then I walk past the old lady and don't rob her, and there's rounds of applause from the audience. It's like, all I did was not rob this old lady. What the hell did I do that deserves applause?
You kept doing what you were doing.
Yeah, like all I did was stick with the standard thing that pretty much everybody should be doing, which is not robbing people.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, they did beat Microsoft over the head with a stick.
I was going to say, it'd be like if Benjamin Arthur robbed her and then tripped and fell in a pile of mud, and you pointed and said, look how stupid he is.
Stupid he is.
And then you got a round of applause.
Yeah. But like one of the things that it took, every time I saw stuff about like people posting about how awesome Sony was, it passed under the radar for like almost a good 24 hours that PlayStation 4 games will require PS Plus for multiplayer.
Yeah, which
and it was like you guys were all too ignorant, praising Sony for not being dicks that you passed up this one thing.
That was something I did notice during the presentation when they said that. I noticed it. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah. I'm like, okay, great.
I'm not saying it's
the Xbox model.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I can justify it.
But Xbox actually, I would say they kind of both went each other's directions because PlayStation Plus has been there for a while now.
No, I know.
And you get the extra games and stuff with it.
Yeah, they're both adopting other people's strategies. Xbox is going to start. Xbox Live is going to start having the free games and stuff that PS Plus has.
Right.
And PS Plus is now going to be required to play PlayStation 4 games online.
Yeah, they're homogenizing
that I think is the best part of it is I can understand it for your new console. I think the good thing about it is that they're not changing it so all PlayStation games required. It's just PlayStation 4 games. And I think that's the best part is you can still get a PlayStation Plus account which works across all the PlayStation platforms, and you don't need it. You don't need PlayStation Plus to play your PS3 games online or your PS Vita games online. Like I think that's a cool thing. Is just like just this new platform, and we'll have to see if this is a trend that keeps up. Is like when PlayStation 5 comes out, they're like PlayStation 4 is now free. PlayStation 5 costs and stuff like that.
To see.
Like that'd be an interesting thing to see if they keep that sort of system up, where it's like. These old games don't require you. These old systems don't require you to be paying our PlayStation Plus fee to play them online.
I could see them not doing that and just basically at this point they're grandfathering in the older consoles policies of not having paid. But you know what? I understand that, and like
I said, it's something we'll have to keep our eye on in 10 years.
Yeah,
so 10 years from now, we'll get back to you.
Yeah. It's not ideal, but
when we're all in our everybody go mark your Google calendars.
It's not ideal.
August
that you have to pay to play online.
2023.
But at the same time, like I understand, that you can provide a better experience potentially if the users who are using it are paying for it. You can have smoother stuff. Hopefully, less data stolen by hackers.
Yeah.
You can, you can afford to do things a little bit better overall. And then the, on the other side of it is, I can also appreciate that they're not requiring it for any access to data over online stuff like they do on the Xbox now. So if I want to watch Netflix or
that's
use
the thing
internet,
that's still kind of a dick
then I have to pay
Microsoft.
them
That's the reason why I don't have like an Xbox Live anymore. Is just like I felt like they were just trying to rob me by the fact that they forced me to pay the gold fee to watch Netflix on there. Where it's
for a long time I was paying it
everything else.
For a long time I was paying for gold only so that I could watch
Netflix. Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm already paying for Netflix. I'm not using any of the gaming or like actually related features. Yeah. I'm literally only paying so that I can have this for Netflix. And actually, for a long time after that, they goofed and were giving it to me for free for a long time. And I didn't argue with them because, hey, free Netflix.
Yeah, hey.
But
free's free.
And, I was in the same place when several years ago, I bought 3 years worth of Xbox Live stuff because at the time I was using it a lot. And I figured, screw it. There was a nice sale on Amazon one day. They were like $20 for a year. So I bought 3 of them, and they each came with an extra 3 months on top. So it was like I had 3.5 years of Xbox Live for $60. That, fine. But when that ran out, I didn't renew. I said no.
Once they figured out their goof and disconnected my gold, I didn't up it anymore either because it was like it would be stupid of me to pay extra basically just for Netflix. Because to be honest, that's what I was using gold for, nothing else.
Yeah,
that's just kind of how it was.
Yeah,
it was and it's a shame though because they're good their quality services provided on there. But I just feel like there's no sense in having to pay to...
Well, for a long time, when you compared, just their straight-up, download servers, when you wanted to download something on your 360 compared to downloading on your PS3, for a long time, the 360 would spank the PS3's ass. Just like Sony's download servers were just, complete crap compared to Microsoft's. And that's why, is because Microsoft has been forcing people to pay for their internet services for so long. And things have definitely picked up, definitely since PlayStation Plus has become a more popular purchase amongst PS4 users. Do PS4 August 12th, 2023. It's a Saturday. Do PS4 multiplayer games still require PlayStation Plus? Devin has marked it in his calendar.
Little do we know that by then,
Devin will be dead.
Well, that too, but Google won't be a thing anymore by then. So.
Yeah, the machines will have taken over.
Google will be our
machine overlord at that point. They will force us to get together and talk about it. The Terminators will get together, and that's what they're going to do.
Here's a good question.
They're going to round up assholes like us to talk about it.
If Skynet is created by plugging an Xbox One into a Sony television, wouldn't Bing become our overlords? In which case, it'd probably be pretty easy to overthrow.
Because Bing's too stupid. Like Bing. Yeah, I was saying, because Bing's too stupid.
Because I'm pretty sure it'd be very easy to overthrow Bing.
Bing will turn out like, what was it? The dumb personality from Portal 2, Wheatley.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Bing will turn into
potential spoilers.
No, he's in like the very beginning of the game, and he's dumb. He's dumb from the beginning.
That's true.
So he's dumb. Yeah, but that's what Bing would turn into.
Some very slight, severe
he
brain
would
damage.
try, but he wouldn't get very far. He'd do those he'd do things to us that are inconveniences instead of menacing and terrorizing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that
things like your blender doesn't work.
Or your socks are slightly staticky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your dryer ate another sock.
Your dryer ate a sock.
It already did that.
That's just regular. Yeah.
No, you know what? That's what's actually causing that, is Bing has invented time travel and has been amassing socks across time.
This is a brilliant plan.
He's powered by the static electricity and the missing socks.
So step 1, collect socks. Step 2, ? Step 3, profit?
Yes. No, it's always 4 steps. Everybody screws it up.
Whatever.
It's like Cards Against Humanity.
Step 4
It
profit.
was like step 1 blank, step 2 blank, step 3 profit. I'm like, you're missing the step. Step 3 is always question mark.
That's true.
That's our policy. Step 1, get 4 idiots in a room. Step 2, throw some YouTube videos up. Step 3, question mark. That's still step 3.
Step 4 profit.
That's still step 3. That's always step 3.
What were the original steps in that?
No, they're interchangeable. It's just you.
No, from the South Park.
He's talking about from the Underpants Gnomes.
Shit, the Underpants Gnomes episode.
Because I forget, they had a real phase 2.
They had
phase
a real
1 was
phase
collect
2.
Underpants.
Yeah.
Phase 2 was a real thing.
And then
phase
step 3 was
question mark.
and then step 4 was profit. You can look that up on your phone while we keep the discussion going. So yeah, I think for me personally, there wasn't a lot about. Like, not even just from, like, what Sony and Microsoft were doing, but there wasn't...
It was a 3-phase plan. It was collect underpants, question mark, profit.
Oh, I thought it was a 4-phase plan.
Aha!
It's not as... You know what, though? That's bad humor timing.
That is. I feel like that is bad humor timing. Which is a rare misstep
Matt and Trey,
for
give us
South
a call.
Park. Which is a rare misstep for South Park.
It is.
Yeah, man, no, I believed you.
I
believed you. I believed you. I believe I didn't go up. All right. So now let's talk. Well, no, now let's talk about let's move away from maybe directly what the specific companies were doing to, like next gen games and stuff that we know about is coming to. Let's stick to the Xbox One, PS4. Battle here.
Before we get started, I just am really sad 1313 is not a thing anymore.
Is that officially over?
Yeah, they canceled all Star Wars stuff in production.
They canceled everything that was in production.
They just said screw it all, and now they're making Star Wars Battlefield.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'll bet they're going to do a bunch of movie
EA,
tie-ins once that becomes a little bit clearer. I would be willing to bet money that movie tie-ins are on the way.
And yes, I did say Star Wars Battlefield, not Star Wars Battlefront, because it's totally Battlefield.
No,
Star
well,
Wars
it's done by EA and DICE.
DICE, yeah.
So
I'm sure it'll be great. Don't get me wrong, but I mean,
I'm a fan of DICE. I'm
a fan of DICE. I was a fan of Battlefront.
I'm a person who I think that the reason why I've gotten tired and bored with Battlefield is EA's fault, not DICE's fault. EA wants them to push out a new one every year, and you can only do so much with a year's time. So it's like I don't blame DICE for like anything for the Battlefield games going stale. They're still solidly built games. And in the time that they're provided, they can still pump out a reasonably decent product. I mean, I was a fan of the Battlefield series. I loved Bad Company and Bad Company 2. I enjoyed a lot. I liked their multiplayer, and I actually enjoyed their single-player campaigns, mainly because of the fact that the characters from Bad Company had character, which is a very rare thing in the modern military shooter genre.
Yeah. We can't afford to get attached.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Disney shut down everything that was in development as far as Star Wars video game projects were concerned.
Okay, so back to the thing.
So back to the thing.
Back to the future.
So back to
September 24th,
these
2015.
Yes. So
that's
back
oddly
to
specific.
That's the date.
I know. That's what I was going to say. It's oddly specific.
See, and
I love those movies.
If you ever don't remember,
he does.
If you ever don't remember what day it is, go to Is This Today? Marty McFly Travels to the Future.com.
I love every time somebody posts that on Facebook.
Yeah.
There's Devin that posts a link.
Yeah.
Nope. I always post that.
Nope.
Is today the day Marty McFly Travels to the Future? No.
No. No.
Hey guys, today's... No, it's not.
No, it's not. So gaming for the next generation.
Yeah. So okay,
we're a little early into there. We're into that transitional period now.
Which
is always interesting.
It's an awkward phase.
That's when games like Perfect Dark Zero come out.
Yes,
which I do own.
You know what? Looking back, that game was a terrible game, but it was one of those like cult classic games where The central gameplay is terrible, but it has good moments.
I wouldn't say this. Well, the central gameplay has its ups and downs.
I feel like they don't want to let that kind of thing happen again. I feel like they're putting a lot of money into big blockbuster
Well, because we'll see.
titles.
Because while that was the era of Perfect Dark Zero and what was the other one Rave put out around the early Xbox 360 life cycle with that girl that could transform into different animals, and it was a rare product.
Are you talking about Beyond Good and Evil?
No.
Animorphs.
No.
Who is it?
You
by?
get out of it. It's by Rare.
I don't remember.
It came out early in the Xbox 360, and the whole thing was kind of like an action adventure game. Then the main character was this girl who it was like a mystical fantasy setting, and she could transform into different animals to accomplish different tasks throughout the game. And it's killing me that I'm not going to remember the name of this. But similarly, while it was the time period of such forgettable titles such as those, it was also the time period of
Battletoads. Sorry, that's apparently by them too.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
That was just kind of weird.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I've known Battletoads, but I've never.
That was the
looked
time
into
period of Oblivion. That was the time of Forza, which Forza,
I played
has
a
been
lot
a
of Forza.
huge game series for Microsoft
Cameo?
in particular. Cameo, that was the one.
There you go. Elements of power.
And Oblivion, I mean, enough said. Well, tons of people know what the Elder Scrolls franchise is, and Oblivion was a huge entry in that series. So it's like there are moments of changeover where games that may have functioned one way on the old generations can get like a little bit new to them, like Oblivion. Like Oblivion got its more real-time combat system as opposed to the strictly dice-based, travesty that was Morrowind's combat system that we've discussed in one of our earlier podcasts. That is actually up. This one does exist. It has not vanished into the ether. So that's like the time period that we're at right now. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's always tough to really make a
specifically. Do you have any
call
examples
early in,
that you may want to call to mind?
Well, there's some cool looking new stuff that's coming out, but it's tough to tell because we haven't yet seen any actual games released. So what we have so far are a bunch of either tech demos or pre-renders or early builds, and so it's real tough to tell how things are actually going to turn out. Some of the stuff that's coming out looks interesting, but even still, we're in that, like you said, we're in that weird adolescent phase where games are growing up from their previous generation to being able to work with the new, hardware ceilings and find that stride between what can and can't be done.
We're in the Caterpie. We're in the
Caterpie stage.
Not Caterpie. Megapod.
Metapod?
Metapod. Not Megapod.
Megapod.
We're in the Metapod
Is this a Digivolve
We're in
stage?
the Metapod stage.
I was going to make a Pokemon reference as well. So.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're in the Metapod stage. We were Caterpies, and now, but not quite Butterfrees. We're still Metapods.
But you know what? You never actually get to be Butterfrees because, well, I guess you kind of do. It's just every generation, it shifts because you end up going back to, from the next generation's point of view. Then we're still at the lower.
You get to be Butterfrees for a little.
That's what
while.
I'm saying.
It's just you eventually go back to Caterpies.
When you look at it as the
It's a
Xbox
circular
360 or the PlayStation 4, we're at that point now. We're at the top of what we can do. But
Well, actually, I'd say now we're at the bottom because at the end of a console's lifestyle is usually when the crap comes out.
It goes back. Yeah,
there are a couple of rare
there's a
exceptions.
brief
At the
point
end
where-
of the Wii's life cycle, it actually had some pretty fantastic games come out at the very end of its life cycle. Mainly, they came out in America at the end of their life cycle. There were the Operation Rainfall games, the games that had come out in Japan, and Nintendo had said they weren't going to release them in America. Eventually, all three of them did come out, and those were the games mainly that I'm talking about. Is those games came out very late in the Wii's life cycle, at least for North America, and they were really good. There are rare exceptions to that, but yeah, towards the end of a console's life cycle, you generally get we just give it up at this point.
And I get that. You've got the next generation of consoles coming out, so people are just finishing pumping out the IP they have now, and they're moving on. There are still companies that are like, no, we're still going to finish out something, despite the fact that we're not planning on launching this until next year.
Yeah.
They're like, we're still putting this out for the current generation of consoles. So you're still going to have those. You're going to keep having the games that go downhill. I mean, look at EA and the original Xbox. How long did Madden last on that thing?
Oh, yeah.
2009, I think?
Yeah. It was a good several years that they were still putting out Xbox copies of new Madden games.
Exactly. So, point being, that's...
Because they didn't want to give up that installed user base.
We've still got our good...
Well, plus they were still putting out... For at least a year, they were still putting... For at least that 1 year that the Xbox 360 beat the PS3 and the Wii to the market, they were still putting out PS2 copies. Which means PS2 copies and Xbox copies were not very different. So it's like, well, if we're going to put out PS2 copies, might as well be an Xbox copy as well. And especially since the PS2 kept up for a couple of years after the PS3 was released, if we put a PS2 copy out, why not put an Xbox copy out as well,
But...
It'll be interesting to see which kind of consoles, if the Xbox One and Xbox 360 and PS3 and PS4, how much they follow that. Yeah, how much crosses over.
Here's another interesting one. So you got your Madden games that you can play online. Now, what are the chances that if I bought a Madden game on 360 and I know somebody who gets a One and they buy the next Madden game, what are the chances we'll actually get to play together?
I'm going very slim. Yeah. Historically,
0%.
Yeah, historically, especially on Microsoft's side, because historically, Microsoft 360 is very bad about playing with other people.
Yeah.
It's terrible about that.
It's not even good at playing with Windows.
No. No, well, there was one game that's ever come out that had cross-play between the two platforms. No.
Prejudice?
No. Shadowrun. The first-person shooter one that was kind of crappy that came out several years ago.
Section 8 Prejudice had cross-platform play too.
Did it?
Yep. If you bought your own server, if you set up your own server with the company,
you could. That's right. You could buy a dedicated server with the.
So
company.
It wasn't something that just came out of the box.
It wasn't standard. But
it was something you had to go out and do.
I was saying because I was pretty sure that because I had it on 360 and I had a bunch of friends that wanted to buy it on, and they didn't have 360, so they all bought it on PC, and that was the thing is. I think we tried it, but we didn't do we didn't buy for a dedicated server from the company.
It has made me sad. I really wish sometimes that it would cross.
I really wish, just in general, cross-platform play was a little bit more of a thing.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Especially when so many of the companies run their own server anyway.
I think the main thing that strikes me as odd is how little, especially the 360, doesn't play with PC.
That's the big. Microsoft owns those markets.
Yeah, more often than not. Somebody playing it on a computer is probably playing it on a Windows system. So it's like, I don't understand why you can't play together.
Halo 2 Vista.
That is a
or
clean
don't,
example.
because...
This is a clean example, though. Because
no, it is.
If you bought it on there, you still could only play with other people. All 5 people who bought Halo 2 Vista.
Yeah, all 5 of them.
You couldn't play with.
They couldn't even get a full match together. That's how bad it was.
Halo 2, because everybody who was playing Halo 2 had moved on to Halo 3 anyway.
Yeah,
So even if there were people still playing Halo 2, you still couldn't play with them.
That was terribly far behind. The Halo games to PC was hilarious to me. I'm like, why even put these out? Like, you're on to the next iteration on the
first
Xbox.
One.
Well, that's because you've never owned you didn't own an original Xbox.
That's true, and I didn't.
So
I didn't then, and still don't own an original.
You know
Xbox.
what's funny is when I got my original Xbox, Halo was not the first game I grabbed. Thief 3.
Yeah.
That's because...
I'm not terribly surprised by that.
That's because you're a fan.
That's true.
That's because you were a Thief
I was
fan.
also a fan of Halo. I thoroughly enjoyed it the first time I played it, but it wasn't the first game I grabbed.
But the thing is you were a fan of Halo, but you were a fan of the Thief series, which had already had
installments.
Yeah, it already had installments that had garnered your fandom at that point. That's like, that'd be the same thing with, like, if I bought a PlayStation 4, if there was some game, so like, let's say if Destiny, because Destiny does have some things about it that look interesting, but I hold my reservations about the game. But like, let's say I got to play Destiny and it like really caught my attention, but then, something comes out in like the Jak and Daxter series where it's like, this is a series that has had multiple entries. That more often than not, if it's a game that has had multiple entries that you enjoy, that more often as not is going to be your initial purchase on a console.
Yeah.
A
lot of new IP too. That's another new thing that's interesting about this. Is it seems like there's like Halo, and then a whole lot of new IP.
That's generally when the new IPs happen. You have the games that come out that are, well, for instance, look at Rare. Take Perfect Dark Zero and Cameo as a perfect example. Perfect Dark Zero came out at the launch of the 360 by Rare because it was an established franchise. It only had one other game, but that game was insanely popular.
Yeah.
Like probably one of the most popular N64 games, right up there with Super Mario 64 and GoldenEye. Like, that was one of those games was like almost everyone who had an N64 owned Perfect Dark.
Well, plus
so
Rare
like
had been big boys forever, because they did the like Donkey Kong Country and
they've been there for forever. But like that had been, even by that company, that's a franchise that they had established already. And then they also put out Cameo, which was a fail of a high five if I ever saw one. But then they put out...
That was supposed to be a quiet high five, and then Devin went for it anyway.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't signal quiet high five.
But
how do you signal quiet high five?
Yeah. No.
That's a signal for quiet.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Cameo was the new franchise that came out from them. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes. There's always the few games that are old franchise and the few games that are new IPs.
Yeah. You got games like Rise, which I know they wanted to make that into a franchise. And
Yeah.
Do they even make games anymore that they don't want to make into franchises?
No. There's a lot of companies that have said no. Specifically, I can think of the two off of my head.
Indie or smaller companies might.
Yeah, indie companies, the big companies I have read from like the CEOs of Activision and Ubisoft that like they're not interested in anything that's not going to be able to be a franchise. They only want things that are going to be franchisable. They don't care about one-off games. And it's always a goal to strive for that you can, milk a concept for as long as you can. If you can, in my opinion at least, as long as you can keep contributing new ideas to this base concept, every couple of years. I don't care. I don't mind. I don't mind the concept of being interested in making something into a franchise. Yeah. It's just that I think some game companies have that. I think some game companies are having that trend that happened with movies in like the late 90s where like every movie was like left open for a sequel because they wanted to have every movie have a sequel. And there were a bunch of movies that were just like, this was stupid to have a good sequel. Ending. Well, it's like Lost in Space, the Godzilla that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was in the late 90s.
Let me make an argument.
But it's like they all had that like little tiny thing at like the very end that like left it open for a sequel. Like, oh, they're gonna make another one, and there's a bunch of those where I'm like, no, they're not gonna make another one. This was not good enough to make another one in a lot of the cases.
I know this has nothing to do with video games at all. So Godzilla, they didn't need that one. Lost in Space, how did you want them to end it? There was not really a way for them to end it. All they could do was...
They could have made it to the goddamn planet.
They could have either died or made it to
planet. Yeah, they could have had closure.
They're going to warp through the sun and then be like, oh, hey, we're here.
They could have. It's called closure. It's a thing that can be done.
I feel like at the same time...
And you can still bring closure to a product and still leave it open for a sequel. That's a thing that can be done.
There's a writing element, I think.
Go learn from... C.S. Lewis on how to close out a story and leave it open for a sequel at the same time. That guy wrote 7 goddamn books in the Narnia series, and not a single one. Stories. Yeah, not a single one ends with some huge ass cliffhanger that you're like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna make another. It's like, no, they told a set story, and then he just ended up being able to tell more stories in that setting.
I feel like I can understand. Lost in Space ended. I feel like they weren't trying to leave it open for a sequel. I feel like this is how every Lost in Space episode went. Is they had their story and then they jumped off to something else. That's you never knew what was going to happen.
That's true. But I mean, those were 2 examples of. I know Kyle, because Kyle's seen tons and tons of movies. I know Kyle's like that was a trend that a lot of movies did. It's still in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Everything left its own. A lot of them now, though, they're making.
Haven't seen that one yet. So.
You haven't seen X-Men Origins?
No. I haven't.
Not the Wolverine. The
new
Deadpool.
Oh no, that one. Yeah, I know. I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
the old one.
That stupid part at the end.
Old crappy one.
There's actually 2 stingers on that film. There were 2 different prints.
Really?
Yeah, yes. No, there was one with the one that Devin just referenced, where Deadpool's arm crawls over to his head.
His
and goes,
head.
shh.
Yeah.
There was another one where Wolverine was in Japan drinking.
Yep.
Things you learn working in a movie theater.
Things you learn when you work at a movie theater. But yeah, I feel like there are games that some games are like it's one thing if you know that you have more to tell in a franchise.
We can talk more about the Wolverine.
Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, after this, we can talk about that.
Yeah, we're already 2 hours in. We don't need any more sidetracks.
But
that says 1 hour and 57 minutes, sir.
But
that's plus 15 minutes of random crap at the beginning.
That's true too. But yeah, it's one thing if you know. Well, because look at as much as I'm not a fan of the Mass Effect games, the one thing I will say about their writing is they had an overarching story arc that they knew was going to take more than one game, but each of the games in and of themselves do a good job of rounding out the story told in that game.
Yeah, there's a threat and it's confronted.
And that's the problem, is that with some of the games, some of these games where it's just they don't wrap things up because they wanted to make it into, they want to make it into a franchise. So there's things that just don't get wrapped up for no good reason. It's learn how to do this.
Well, and I could say the same thing about with your comparison to Mass Effect. Each one, the Gears of War, for instance, at the very end of Gears of War 1, you end a potential threat.
Yeah.
Turns out there's another threat that shows up because of events that happen in that game. I don't remember how Gears of War 3 pans out, because I still haven't played that one, and I probably won't ever play that one.
Haven't played that one. I didn't even play that much of 2. I haven't even played that much of 2. I played the first one.
And those are games that at the same time that they have repetitive gameplay. If you played the first one, or you've played the second one. Yeah. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much the same.
That's kind of why I didn't really play much of 2.
But in all honesty, Gears of War is more of a playable tech demo for real.
Yeah, that kind of was. It kind of was a little bit.
Anyway.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what new franchises come out of the new console generation.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see where some of them go.
Yeah. I'm hoping some of them aren't just stuck to just the consoles. I hope some of them are. You've got Destiny that's going to be multi-platform.
Here's the thing where I made different from all of you. I am in favor of more console-specific exclusives.
I am fine with that, but why?
Because of the one thing that, admittingly, it's not a practice that's done much anymore, because consoles these days are very bogged down in very heavy operating systems. But the old policy that is occasionally still kept alive, mainly by the company we'll talk about in a second after I'm done with this, by Nintendo, is that way you can specifically program a game for a specific set of hardware, which I believe turns out for a better singular product that admittingly you cannot play on anything and everything, but that's the reason why PC games are so buggy and glitchy. It's because you have to program a PC game to be able to interact with such a wide array of hardware and software that things can just go wrong along the way, because there's so many steps you have to go through, so many connections you have to make. Whereas if you have a console that has a specific hardware layout, it's only using these specific parts that are manufactured specifically for this purpose. It's easier for developers to code a game specifically to that system, and you can get a game that A, is less glitchy, and B, can utilize the hardware better and in more creative ways.
Well, so first-party titles are always so much nicer looking.
Now,
the more creative stuff, I
admittingly, that's not as strong of a franchise. That's not as strong of a practice now as it was, because, as I said, a lot of consoles now are starting to use very heavy OSs. Like the Xbox One. One of the things I noticed about the Xbox One is this doesn't look like it's going to be a big step up from the 360 in power, because despite the fact that it's got all that extra power in it, it looks like the operating system is a lot heavier now.
It is.
Because of the fact that you can instantly swap between TV and game and movie and all this different stuff. It's that means it's keeping a lot of processes going in the background. and you could be using that memory and processing power to just power a thing and get more out of it.
One more thing to add on to the exclusive things. So you get your better performance out of it, you get your better tuning and everything out of it, but you also get a better game out of it because since they have only one console to work on, they have to make that game good.
And yeah, that's the thing is you have to worry about selling. You have to worry about your game being a better game to sell catastrophically well. If it's only on one thing, like if it's only available on one system, you have to make sure that everybody on that system wants that game.
Exactly.
Like everybody on that system wants to play that game.
You get better games out of exclusive too, which is where I am okay with exclusives as well. But
I personally
have a lot of
exclusives.
I'm gonna have to have a lot of exclusives. I would love to buy one of the
as far as it goes, as far as like more like independent games are concerned, I'm okay with them trying to get on as much as possible because they're smaller. It benefits them better to try and get access to as many avenues of revenue as possible, but also they tend to develop smaller games that like developing an indie game specifically for the Wii U or the 360 or the PC is not a big matter of difference because it's not a big, long development process that you have to worry about like, oh my god, is like the hardware this is played on going to be such a big deal? But like for big AAA titles, I am actually more of a fan of console exclusivity because of that simple fact. And it cuts down on development time, it cuts down on development costs, and it makes a more streamlined game.
It does.
And I'm a fan of that.
Well, and you can pick a console that you as a developer feel like is the best one for it. Like if you feel that your game is best presented with the motion controls that the Wii has versus a gamepad or with the Kinect, then you can specifically build your game to be excellent in that style of gameplay.
You know what's great about the next generation of consoles for that is a developer can start off not connected to either one of them. They can depend on the fact that it's going to be an x86 based system. They can depend on a handful of certain factors as long as they target a minimum. And they can develop out a game up to a point where they can present it to Microsoft or present it to Sony, and either one of them could invest in them and make it an exclusive, and then they could just kick straight over to that. They can develop targeting both at the beginning with the goal of they have that step 2, that phase 2. It's not question mark. Phase 2 for them is get exclusive rights on one or the other, and then develop that direction.
Yeah.
So
that's just
so. I am okay with exclusives, but I mean, it's not going to be a right away thing for me. I'll tell you now. After watching everything with E3 and even after Microsoft's backpedaling, I made the decision to kick over to PC, and I'm going to roll PC for a while.
That was something I was going to ask at the end: is how everybody feels about the next generation at this moment.
Well, I mean,
I already built my new PC.
Yeah,
so.
That was going to be my answer. I just dropped a bunch of money into a new PC.
PC horsepower is always ahead of consoles, but again, it's the same thing where even as console OSs are getting heavier, they're still behind PC OSs. So with the same amount of horsepower, you can actually do close to similar things because of the fact that
I'm not even
PCs are
based on power. I'm just
saying. Like definitely when it comes to PCs, there's the
selection,
the benefit of selection and freedom, which is a good thing. We can maybe in
touch on that.
Maybe in a couple of weeks after I get back from my trip, we can have a soapbox about that. But
we should soapbox during PAX.
We could.
You could. You guys could do it without me, or I could even like Skype in or something.
You're not in this. It'll be.
I'd say we do it after PAX because I'm not bringing these with me. I'm not bringing all my audio equipment with me.
Yeah, if you put it in a bag and we'll throw it in the car.
You can get meat to put it. You and meat can put it in a bag together while I'm gone.
We used to set up and tear down.
Yeah, I got a vacation.
I can do this. Don't worry.
I got a vacation.
I've got 2 weeks of nothing to do.
I got a trip to Cleveland coming up, so you guys can take care of that while I'm gone. And
anyway,
yeah.
So anyways,
but yeah,
before we round out, of course, the one topic we have not quite broached all the way yet is Nintendo and their current standings. They're in a they're, like we said, like everybody seemed to agree earlier, they are on a different path the question is, what is everybody's thoughts on that path?
If I had to pick one of the 3 major consoles right now, Wii U.
I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. I mean,
PS4.
that wasn't going to be a question for me because, as I stated earlier,
You're a Nintendo fan.
Nintendo or die.
How would you pick a Wii U over the others?
But yeah, I want to get your guys' opinions on where Nintendo's at before I lay mine down.
I really enjoyed what the Wii did. I know a lot of people, it took flack from a lot of people because it was the casual system.
Uh-huh.
Mine wasn't broken. I'd still actively use it. But the Wii U, I thought it was interesting, all the stuff they were doing with the touchscreen, and just everything Microsoft's done from saying DRM to now backpedaling. And to be honest, my PS3 is a media server. I don't really game on it.
No, yeah, yeah.
If
it
I
plays a wicked YouTube video on your front room TV.
Yeah, if I had to pick, the one that I would get the most fun and use out of would be the Wii U.
So for me, I picked the PS4 kind of for the same reason. I have a Wii. It has not been turned on in almost 2 years. I really don't have much interest in a lot of the games that exist on the Wii U. I have plenty of interest in the games that exist on the PS3. I have interest in the games that are coming out for the PS4, particularly the exclusives, and I have enjoyed many exclusives on the PlayStation 3. You know, and that's why I would still go with the PS4, and I'd specifically go with the PS4 because, like I said earlier, Sony really focused on games and the game experience with the PS4, and they have all that other media stuff elsewhere, so they didn't have to shove that or shoehorn that in.
Yeah, there's certain exclusives for PlayStation that I'll want to buy a PS4 maybe when it comes down in price.
Much
to play.
It's starting at a good price too. That's the other thing too. Starting
$100 cheaper.
Yeah, it's $100 cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that doesn't come with the Move or anything. Not like, the 360 comes with the
Microsoft
Kinect.
is forcing that.
They're forcing you to buy
forced bundle.
They're forcing you to buy the Kinect with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Which is a choice I could say I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that the one thing that you can say for that is at least developers know that hardware is available to every user.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's really good.
Well, it's like that was one of the reasons why
somebody doesn't plug it in. Just like, I don't want to have it in.
That's one of the reasons why I could get behind.
Well, I could understand a game going, where is it?
I have a feeling that the Xbox operating system.
No, from what I was to understand, if your Kinect is disconnected, the Xbox just won't work.
No, that's right. That's something else I'm interested to see what will happen is if you turn it on, it will turn on and go. It will be like a computer if you don't put a hard drive in. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it will.
Yeah, no, that's the impression I got.
There's going to be that's where the NT loader file is going to be. Is there's a memory stick inside of the Kinect.
The onboard memory of the Kinect.
It holds your EFI
loader.
or your NT loader, and that has to be plugged in. Otherwise, it goes, I don't know what you're talking about.
Press F5 to continue.
Yeah.
So
no keyboard connected. Press F1 to continue.
Okay, so I back to initial impression stuff. So who's going to get what?
Ben. So we'll move on. So you can touch on Nintendo, and since Tymo and Devin have both stated their first pick now.
Okay,
like
so,
if I told you tomorrow you had to buy, let's say, all 3 of the systems that are out, and I told you tomorrow you have to buy one of the new 3 next-gen systems. And then you can touch on anything from Nintendo that you want to touch on.
I think I would be torn on the Wii U and the PS4. And the reason is I like the PS4 hardware and potential. It's got some good games that I'm interested in that are going to be coming out for it. But I think that Nintendo has a better track record with first-party titles that I have consistently enjoyed. And so I would be not wanting to miss out on any entries in that. But I think there's a problem with Nintendo, and it's a problem of the market, which is that if they came out early, they hit the market, and the results were underwhelming, and a lot of developers immediately backed off. And so part of the problem is, people are hesitant to buy the console because there's not as many games for it. But at the same, and a lot of what is coming out for it are re-releases of games they already have on other consoles. and like Batman and
like
Deus
Batman,
Ex,
Arkham City, and Deus Ex, Human Revolution.
At least Ghosts will be coming out at the same time as everything else.
Yeah, but so then
and not that I care about COD, but
so at that point you have these new titles coming out, and there's just not as many of them though, and so it kind of goes both ways because, like I said, people are hesitant to buy the console because there's not as many games, but then developers are hesitant to make games because there's not that many consoles out there. The people want to develop for consoles that there's a big user base for, because if there's not the installed user base, then there's just then you're not going to get the sales. So so I think they're kind of suffering from some sluggishness at the beginning of their cycle. At least it seems like that's starting to pick up as people have a better idea of what what Nintendo and Sony are putting forward. I think people are more willing to bet on the Wii U as a viable option, because I think a lot of people got burned on the Wii because they had that whole thing where they couldn't see themselves playing a quote-unquote casual gaming console. And because they couldn't get around that, they felt like they were, not included in it. And I think people were waiting to see if the options were going to be that drastically different from what the Wii U put forth. And so people held off a lot on buying it, I think, initially. And hopefully that will change, and we'll maybe get to see a little bit more competition among the three. Yeah. But at least for now, it seems like Nintendo and Sony are at each other's throats. Or I'm sorry, Nintendo is separate, but Xbox and Microsoft
Sony,
are at each other's throats. Nintendo, on the other hand, is just kind of focusing on doing what they do best, which is focusing only on gameplay. They're not worried about integrating your television experience or any of the other kind of stuff that they that other consoles are doing. They're focusing exclusively on how do we bring the best games and the newest gameplay available for the hardware that we can. Because they've never been afraid to fail before. I mean, look at the Power Glove or the Virtual Boy. They're always pushing the boundaries. Or Rob. They're always pushing the boundaries with what can be done with the current generation of technology. And they stick to their guns, which, as we talked about, is something that I think I can respect in that.
Yeah, they stuck to that Virtual Boy until it stopped selling. They stuck to that Virtual Boy.
I think another thing we can say about Nintendo is because they don't rely on third-party sales, they're not afraid to take those.
Oh no,
that's true.
But here's where I give my opinion. I don't think there's any question on which of the three I would be buying. Everybody knows it's the Wii U, but I would say that I would agree with Benjamin that Nintendo does have a problem, and it's similar to what Benjamin said, but I can pinpoint it a little more specifically, is that Nintendo's, as we've said, Nintendo's business philosophy is that they don't have to rely on third-party titles to sell their systems. But the problem is they do have to rely on really strong first-party titles. They really, really do.
Yeah, and they haven't been pushing those.
Well, and here's where I feel like Nintendo misfired this round, this year, especially with things that they announced at E3 that they have on the docket, things that they've announced through their Nintendo Directs and stuff like that. Because, I mean, I subscribe to their YouTube channel, so I watch all of their Nintendo Directs. And the games that convince people to sell their systems are generally their like mainline canon, either Mario action platformer titles, their 3D Mario action platformer titles, their Zelda titles, or their Metroid titles.
Yeah.
If you look at the starting life of all of their past consoles, one of those three has been involved in that front lineup. And I feel like with the Wii U, they are drastically lacking that, and I feel like that's why it's missing its sales. They've had these multiplayer Mario titles coming out that, don't get me wrong, I like that and I enjoy it, and it looks like a lot of fun to me, but I also look at it and I go, where's my Mario 64? Or where's my Super Mario Sunshine? Where's my Super Mario Galaxy? Like, these more single-player... Because, yes, a lot of gaming nowadays is very much online and stuff, but it still helps to sell your console, and especially in Nintendo's history, it helps to sell your console when people know that they don't have to have other people to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I think their biggest misstep that they are making now is the fact that they're deciding to push the Wind Waker HD remake instead of either a brand new Zelda, Mario, or Metroid title.
Yeah.
I think they've mismanaged those resources, and I think if they came out with a brand new Mario, Zelda, or Metroid title that really showed off the Wii U and its control scheme, because look what Twilight Princess did for the Wii. Twilight Princess showed everybody that, yes, they had their Wii Sports, which really demonstrated you a lot of different versatile ways you can use it really made you, it was there to let you learn how to play with this funky waggle remote thing that Nintendo was putting out. So it was like, okay, they kind of let you know how to play with it, with Wii Sports, which came with the console in North America. It was different in Japan. It was sold separately. But then Twilight Princess was like, okay, you have Wii Sports that showed you how to play. Here's Twilight Princess. Here's a mainline Nintendo franchise that uses our new control scheme to play the game. And I feel like they're missing that right now.
Yeah,
I feel like they
agree.
needed a new Zelda title that uses the second screen, or a new Mario title, or a new Metroid title, a mainline Nintendo developed, or you can third party it, because Metroid Prime was a fantastic game for the GameCube, and that was not developed by Nintendo. That was developed by Retro Studios. But it was still a mainline Metroid game, a mainline Nintendo franchise game. And I really feel like they need one of those, and instead they made a GameCube HD remake. And for me, it's way too early in the console lifecycle for that. You have not established your console well enough to be diverting resources to HD remakes. Like, you need to get your solid main franchise games on there before, and because that's what Nintendo uses to sell their consoles. Mario and Zelda sell Nintendo consoles.
It occurs to me that
that's what happens.
It occurs to me that part of that might be...
I'm sorry, but no, Smash Brothers does not count. I love the crap out of the Smash Brothers series.
Yeah, it's not a central IP, though.
It needs to be... I'm sorry, it has to be a Mario, Zelda, or Metroid game. Like a specifically centralized Mario game, or a Zelda game, or a Metroid game, because those are the games that sell Nintendo franchises. Because generally those are the games that offer experiences that aren't available to the other systems because of how iron-fisted, how imperialistically they hold on to their big franchises. Like, and Nintendo very rarely lets anybody else touch their big franchises, and it's done successful for them. But the problem is that they also have to be the ones putting out those franchises, and I feel like they're falling short on that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the fact that there's a new Mario Kart coming out. It looks awesome. The Super Mario 3D World that's coming out looks like it's a lot of fun. Like, don't get me wrong, these games look like they're fun, but they don't look like what you need to... They look like fun to me, but I'm already an established Nintendo fan. The problem is they don't have a game, in my opinion, that looks like it's going to sell the system to other people.
No.
Who aren't just, like, automatically locked in. Like, I was locked in when the Wii U was announced. That's because I'm a Nintendo fan. They need the game. They need their killer app game that's going to lock that system in for people who weren't locked in just because of the fact that it's a Nintendo.
People on the fence.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like because the Wii hardware wasn't up to its competitors in the last console race, now they're stuck in this weird race where they're like, all those games you wish you could have gotten on the Wii, now we have them on the Wii U and they're better. So you should buy a Wii U so you can play with the second screen.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like
Arkham City Armored Edition.
I feel like to make the sell for their console, they needed to have one of their games that can do that, and they don't have that.
Yeah.
Like New Super Mario Bros. Wii U does not utilize the second screen in any game-breaking sort of way.
It's almost like they should have delayed the most recent Zelda game just to wait,
No, they should have. I've said this to Meat before. It's like, I think that the HD remake was a waste of resources at the current point in its life cycle. they should have been putting that development team towards a brand new Zelda game for the Wii U. Yeah. Like that would have. I feel like they'd be in a much more secure and better spot, business-wise.
Yeah.
If that was their choice, but
a new Zelda, a new Metroid, a new Mario.
Like I said, something from their big mainline franchise. Like they need one of their big mainline franchises because, like we said, that is what they sell their systems with. It's nice because they're free from needing the support of third-party developers. The problem is that they are reliant on their first-party lines. So yeah, I believe Nintendo has made some bad decisions along with the bad decisions made by Microsoft, and I can't necessarily point out anything necessarily a bad decision on Sony's part. Sony hasn't necessarily wowed me, but
they haven't grown a lot, but they also haven't screwed up.
Yeah, I can't really point to anything where I'm like, this was a bad call, this was stupid. Yeah, they're staying the course. I can't necessarily say that the course impresses me a lot, but they're staying the course. And, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for them. I guess that's a positive that Sony can draw out of all that, is I at least cannot think of a direct negative thing to say about things going on with the PS4. Like, I can't point out one thing where I'm like, this was a dumb move. Like, it's all very solid, very straightforward, very much in line with what they've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
So, my hat goes off to them.
Maybe Nintendo really should have, even outside of the primary three, they should have picked one of their old franchises.
Well, because they're putting out a Pikmin game, but the problem I feel with the Pikmin game is you can play the Pikmin game with the gamepad, with the Wii U pad, the Classic Controller Pro, or the Wii Remote and Nunchuck.
Doesn't really drive the.
The problem with that is that you want people to drive.
It doesn't exemplify the new hardware.
Yeah, it doesn't exemplify what makes the Wii U special, and that's the problem. Is you have to have that game that can only be played on the Wii U gamepad.
One game
that's the experience they need that they are lacking.
Could be fun. Fire Emblem. If you did if you had your data reference and you had your movement down on your second screen, mm-hmm. and up top would be full on nice animations of all the battles that were going on.
Really well rendered battles.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, not that that's going to be the big thing for a lot of people because let's face it, Zelda.
It'd be hard. It'd be hard with that. That would be cool. That'd be another thing where it's awesome. That'd be fun. But the problem is that Fire Emblem is not as much of a name drawing franchise.
Exactly. It's not the masses.
I mean, it's gotten a lot of popularity, especially with the newest installment on the 3DS. Seems to be getting a lot of popularity.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like to really sell it, it needs to be attached to Mario, Zelda, or Samus.
Yeah.
It needs to, because that's their big franchises that have been selling their systems for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like I said, they have Pikmin 3, which I think they're thinking is that game, but for me it seems like a mistake because it can be played with either the old Wii controls or just, I mean,
a regular controller.
A classic controller. A classic controller Pro is, except for specific layout, no different from an Xbox 360 controller or a PS3 controller or an Xbox One or a PS4. Controller. Yeah, it's the same.
Or GameCube or anything
slightly
else.
different from the GameCube controller because it has 4 triggers instead of 3. But anyways,
it doesn't do anything to exemplify what the new hardware specifically can do.
It's not a controller design that's specific to the Wii U. No, whereas the gamepad with a screen in the middle of it is the controller design of the Wii U.
What you're saying is
you need a game that only uses that. It doesn't. It does not use their new.
Just as an example.
I personally, as a Nintendo fan, would use the word vision, but I could see gimmick.
Vision.
Well, because that's the thing is you have to sell.
You have to
sell the vision of your system. Like with Wii Sports, you're like, okay, the Wii Remote, I could see this as a gimmick. But then with Twilight Princess, it was like this was used as the control scheme for a full solid game. This is now the vision of the path of your console.
That definitely most exemplified the Wii and their motion controls with pointing, with the Wiimote and everything, was definitely Metroid Prime 3.
Metroid Prime 3 was solid.
So solid.
That was one of the best first-person shooters I've played in my entire life. Yeah. The controls for that game are amazing.
And it was great when they poured the first two forward.
And it was a first-person. It was a first-person shooter game that even mouse and keyboard can't compare to it. No, really. It's way better than anything, any first-person shooter I've ever played, and it was
felt
Samus.
Nice and interactive.
It was Samus. It was a name that has been around for decades, and it was a good, solid game built with the control scheme of the Wii specifically. No, it's all right. We can wrap this up. I think we have. Anybody have any closing thoughts that they might wish to add now at the end of it?
I think the race is closer than it appears at first glance, and I'm really interested to see where things
go.
There's
lots. I get the feeling like there's a lot of people, especially now that Microsoft has backed down on a lot of their negative stuff that they got chewed out for. I think the PS3. I mean, they're both still starting to sell out in pre-orders. As much as the Xbox One got scads and scads of hate, they're both still starting to sell out for pre-orders. Yeah. So I mean the race is definitely still close.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot different now because of the fact that last generation Sony and Microsoft were staggered by a year. This is the first time that they've had two consoles that are literally releasing so close together. Like the Xbox and PS2 were staggered. Yep. The Xbox 360 and the PS3 were staggered. These two are like dead heat, neck and neck, releasing within a very, very limited amount of time of each other. Yeah, they're like a month apart or something.
They're both going to be out in time for holiday 2012.
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah, they're both
travel. Skynet.
This is where Bing travels back in time and steals the socks. This is where we travel back in time to earlier in the episode.
Trademark everything.
But
trademark
everything. Sock powered Bing trademark. Dude. Pink orangutan.
Static power.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely close, and we'll see how things turn out between Microsoft and Sony.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as much as I am a Nintendo fan, I think mainly I'm using my PC to play games that I would probably play on like a 360 or a PS3. I'm starting to divert those types of games to my PC.
Yeah, and that was my rationale behind moving to PC wasn't strictly because of Sony and Microsoft's moves with at E3. Yeah. It was those plus my PC is ancient. You've had that
my PC is kind of a pile of crap right now. Yeah, no, I have never had a new PC. Yeah. I've never had a PC that can qualify as new.
Having a new PC. All of the hardware I have in my computer was released in the past 4 months. So
if anybody's feeling generous, send donations too. Send us an email. There's an email. There's an email in the description. There's always an email in the description of all our videos. Just send us an email. I'll get you the details that you need. We can provide more quality content if I have a better computer. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to beg. I'm not afraid to beg.
Anyway, yeah. So that my rationale behind moving was partially driven by the new generation. Not to say that I was disappointed, but I was unimpressed. I'm impressed that they made new hardware strides, but it's the same stuff that's in my computer now. You know?
Yeah.
It's and guess what? I can upgrade my stuff as newer games come out, so there's that freedom there.
I'm curious. One thing I am curious about with this new generation of consoles is, especially since their operating systems are getting so heavy, is are we going to see the resurgence of the N64 expansion pack? Are we going to see consoles that can be upgraded?
That's a good question. Will there be
5
hardware
years down
expansion?
the road?
Well, even the PS2 for a while had the hard drive and
yeah. You had the memory expansion in the N64.
That's true. Which kind of disappeared.
Going back to Perfect Dark, you needed it to play the single player campaign in Perfect Dark.
Well, and if you look at the most recent generation, if you actually look at the Xbox 360, though technically it hasn't changed really. Platform-wise, the newest versions of it are
better hardware
than the older ones.
But I'm curious if it'll be a more direct, relatable. Like instead of just like slightly better hardware
it's like,
doing the same stuff,
doubled the RAM.
It's like a legitimate upgrade, like you would to like a PC. Yeah. I'm curious to see if we'll see any of that within this console.
The Xbox 1.5.
Yeah.
There's the brilliance of our naming scheme.
Yeah.
We figured it out.
We figured it out.
Copyright.
Copyright. We'll see.
Nintendo kind of did it. They had the DS, and the DS Lite wasn't a big change. However, then there was the DSi, which they thought people were going to be like, we're going to do something with the camera, and then nobody really did that.
Yeah, no, it'll be
that one Beyonce commercial, and that was about it.
which Beyonce tried to sue for. No, it wasn't. She didn't sue Nintendo. She sued some other company. That was a whole thing. It happened. Look it up. Google it.
Bing it.
No.
Sponsored by Bing.
I was saying, because Bing will direct you somewhere else.
Bing will direct you to the socks.
Bing. Beyonce Nintendo commercial. Did you mean socks?
Did you mean socks? So we will wrap up this episode. Tymo, Benjamin Arthur, do you have any last comments? Devin kind of got some last comments in there, so I guess I can.
I'm gonna sit this one out.
Okay.
I don't think I'm buying a new console for several years.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least initially, I'm not going to be picking up any of the three new. I've been buying stuff on Steam, not to snub the other consoles or anything, but just because I feel like it's a safe go-to for a while all the initial craziness of the new console war blows over. Within a year or two, we'll know all the major drawbacks of all three of the new consoles, and we'll be able to better make an informed decision.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on another episode of Press A to Climb Soapbox. Be sure to check out the rest of the videos on our YouTube channels. We have some hilarious playthroughs, especially our most recent playthrough of Worms is a particular treat that I think everybody should check out eventually. It got amazing. But yes, check out other soapboxes. Check out all of our other videos. Give us a like and a subscribe if you like what we do. It helps us keep going. Those two followers that we have that watch our videos.
We lost the other two that we had.
Yeah, because JJ and Guillermo del Toro decided they had better things to do. Anymore. They decided they had better things to do.
Probably a good call on their part.
And I am NazTMann.
Benjamin Arthur.
Tymo.
SaryUncleDevin.
And we thank you for joining us on Press A to Climb Soapbox. And we'll see you next time.
You better include that.